An Inspiration Guide 1. Chapter 1. Inspiration 1. The Guts of Motivation. A lack of motivation either means you're tired or you're not interested in the first place. Get boundless motivation by discovering what you really like to do that earns you money. Discover your true nature and live by it. If you're doing a job you don't like for the money, so what? That's the way of the world. Most people don't really like their jobs. You just suck it up and work. Make it fun and interesting in some way or race at it to finish it. Some motivation is not great, like wanting to impress others. Do whatever it is you do because you want to do it, you like to do it. I know a retired radio broadcaster working as a dishwasher because it gets him out of the house. From a boss's point of view, keep the enthusiastic workers. Keep the neutral workers because that's where most people are. Get rid of the winners and lazy bums. People want comfort, money, and work that gives them a sense of achievement. There are plenty of unmotivated people around who are lazy, scatterbrained, weak, mentally ill, angry at life, antisocial. If you're one of these people, discover something that interests you that you can earn money at or feel great about life doing. Beware of motivation sappers like junk food, prescription drugs, recreational drugs, alcohol, frivolous pursuits, materialism. Get motivated by looking within to discover your essence, true nature, and soul, then live by it. Find your natural motivation by doing what I did starting as a kid. I tried things I was interested in until I hit on the few I really like to do, and I still do them. Nothing changes about me over time. I am my soul. Stay off the sofa. You could check out my mental health superbook to read about depression. You must be active. Motivation breeds inspiration. Inactivity spirals in you. When you walk, you think. Walk around and the ideas will come. Set goals, then work on them, little by little, day by day. Eliminate negativity. For me, it was my stoner, alcoholic friends. Virtually everybody I know drinks alcohol, gets high and watches a lot of stupid shows on TV. I basically became a loner because I wanted to do things, so I do my own thing and I feel really good about it. Be optimistic. Visualize success. Rest when you're tired. Break big tasks into little tasks. Conquer anything one step at a time. Discover who you are and live by it. Inspiration, the fountain of youth. The strongest thing you got is willpower. The important thing is never stop being curious and questioning things. Abe Lincoln's biography. Failed in business at age 31. Was defeated in a legislative race at age 32. Failed again in business at age 34. Overcame death of sweetheart at age 35. Had a nervous breakdown at age 36. Lost an election at age 38. Lost a congressional race at age 43. Lost a congressional race at age 46. Lost a congressional race at age 48. Lost a senatorial race at age 55. Failed to become vice president at age 56. Lost a senatorial race at age 58. Was elected President of the United States at age 60. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul, and sings the tune without words, and never stops at all. Emily Dickinson. Hope is inspiration. Inspiration is something you have to have within yourself. You can't buy it or get it from the outside world. Any fool can holler at you all he wants to get you to do things like those drill sergeants do in the army or parents and teachers, but this is meaningless because once they're gone, you can do what you want. Inspiration, on the other hand, is something that comes from within. Virtually the entire crux of free spiritism is that you don't follow the plodding formula of the world to be successful. You find what's in your soul, which should give you the natural power and inspiration to want to do whatever it is you feel in there, unlike a career you don't really love such that you have to force yourself to perform in it. With inspiration, the natural motivated power of your soul, the will and the effort should be easy. This is what makes me different from every self-help book out there. They give you a list of X number of plotting steps you're supposed to do to get successful in life, but they all fail because none of them address the natural inspired power in your soul, which is the only way to live in harmony with yourself. You can feed your inspiration by watching the inspired people of the world, but it has to be within you to begin with. Some enlightened people can get through totally with their own inspiration within themselves, but in the world at large, very few people have the desire nor the inclination to be strongly inspired insulated islands within themselves. They need to encourage and be encouraged, to talk it up with the people around them, to give each other positive vibes to help each other move forward with their journeys and make the day go better. I have my own inspiration within myself, but always try to find positive people to hang with for a few minutes here and there to help each other exchange some inspiration and power, thus making us stronger for the moment as we proceed on with our journeys. Stated simply, inspiration is the way to live if you want to be a winner who gets the most out of all the minutes of his life. Simply strive to live for inspiration. Even though inspiration is inside of me, I try to feed off the energy of inspired people everywhere, even from the characters on TV. In the world at large, the spirit of youthful spark and inspiration is gone in most people by the time they're 35. Inspiration is the spirit of youth, what keeps you young regardless of age, to take care of yourself, then go out and socialize as though you're still 25. In the picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde created a character who sold his soul for eternal youth, but I say the two are the same thing. A strong soul is eternally youthful. Inspiration is the only thing that makes me want to get out of bed in the morning. It's my pure love of life, my untapped potential. Nothing on the planet can give it to you but you yourself. My life is to try to stay inspired as much as I can. I've made peace with it. I know that today is as good as it gets and the day I die will be another day just like today, so my mission is to fill it up with inspired living like I did when I was young. Then when the end comes, it will be alright because I will know I couldn't have done it any better. Inspiration is the beauty of the soul made real. It's becoming the person you want to be one day at a time by doing what comes from the soul, not by chasing an illusory dream of the world. Empty dreams will leave you flat because they don't come from within you. The only true fulfillment you will ever get is if you use your inspiration to create something beautiful and worthy from your soul. This is the only true elixir of life, to bring what you feel on the inside to the outside via some manner of creative, spiritual, inspirational, or physical expression. After 35, the natural exuberance of youth is gone, so inspiration becomes the fountain of youth. To live for soul and do soulful pursuits regularly is to stay forever young. To live well every day is to suck whatever soul you can get out of it to keep that inspired feeling alive. You have to constantly renew yourself in order to feel good. It never ends. The moment you fall into a rut of work, problems, apathy, cynicism, TV, shopping, and food is the moment you die a spiritual death, which leads to detachment from the soul and loss of self. Because it's so tough to get back once it's gone, most people who even bother to try see the mountain ahead, make a half-assed attempt but give up and go back to their limited lives, accepting this lowered version of who they are as they head off into oblivion, losing a bit more of their spark day by day until there's barely nothing left but a faint flicker covered over by all the illusions of the world. Enlightenment is simple. You must listen to your soul and follow it. To make it to old age with the spark of inspiration intact would be to win the game of life, but it's hard because it takes a lot of work, which is why most people give in to lives of mundanity by middle age, which is to work a dull job, drive home, eat tasty food, watch TV, maybe golf on the weekends or play Scrabble, and that's the bulk of their lives. Every day's the same unless you create it with inner spark which inspires action, which fills you up. Then when you rest later, you feel good because you've honored yourself and done something worthy. It's easy to lose your spark. 1 week of inertia puts you into a rut, and if you let it go, it grows until you've lost yourself, which is the emptiest feeling in the world. I'm like Shakespeare in this regard, from Hamlet, to thine own self be true and it must follow, as the night and day, thou canst then be false to any man. Culture your soul, and once you reach a level feeling good and inspired, hold onto it for dear life with constant soulful action because it's really the only prize of life aside from a bit of love and sex. Inspiration follows purpose, hard work, and quiet hope. Inspiration is its own motivator and its own reward because the inspired person is the most vital force in the universe. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you've got inspiration, the perspiration is easy because you love the process. Find inspiration wherever you can. Talk to people, read about people, learn your business or craft. Believe that you can do it and you will. Unless you're the Rock of Gibraltar, the soul needs to be constantly fed. Always look for inspiration. It comes in thousands of different forms, in stories, in the acts of people, in their creations and in the expression of their talents. If you get up in the morning with a purpose to unleash your natural inspiration regardless of what it may be, that's your secret to life and longevity. Everything great is created a little bit every day, one day at a time. If you release your soul, you're honoring yourself and everything about life because you're only fulfilling what the spirit of life created within you. You only get old when you will it so. The bottom line is inspiration on a daily basis, which equals renewal, whatever it takes to find your center and get you through feeling young, alive, on fire for your love of life. Inspiration is watching people who've mastered their passions in action, anything from the figure skater to A&E's biography about the obsessed scientist. I saw a PBS documentary about the building of the Brooklyn Bridge by hand in the era of the horse and buggy. This is a testament to the human spirit. Then I turned the channel and watched a few guys train for the Iditarod, Iditarod.com, a long-distance dog sled race across the Arctic. It may not seem practical, but they're out there doing it. It says something for the spirit of humanity. Just like I felt goosebumps when I watched Neil Armstrong walk on the moon, I get inspired when I see someone doing something incredible regardless of what it is, all the way from some kid I saw flip about 8 feet on a skateboard and then land on it to some guy I saw who called himself a shallow diver and dove into a pool of 4-foot water from a height of 40 feet. These are all people living for inspiration, going for higher versions of themselves. I saw an old documentary with John Denver in the woods somewhere talking about nature and singing some of his songs. Then on NBC Dateline, I saw some Russian guy in a worldwide solo boat race who had to operate on his own arm to save himself. I saw a show about how Walt Disney created the Disney Empire. Little by little, he kept adding concepts as he made money, starting with his cartoons from a garage studio. There are always stories of people who faced impossible odds and overcame them all. I like to watch shows about nature, animals, and exotic places like India, Africa and Australia because they take me away to an interesting place for a while, which has the effect of freeing me from where I am for a minute or two. I generally don't watch team sports but like watching intense individual physical pursuits like track and field, rock climbers, extreme sports, daredevils, triathlons, strength contests, etc. I don't watch scripted, frivolous TV shows, which means all sitcoms, all dramatic series and most movies, unless it's something like The Prefontaine Story, Papillion, A Great Escape Adventure or Chariots of Fire. Reader's Digest and Guideposts magazine are the best around for inspirational stories. Even though I'm not much of a Christian, I get inspiration from Christian TV. It's one of the few places on TV where people are always trying to be a positive force to the world. Preachers are basically cheerleaders who hold a pep rally every week and pursue their craft of the tongue to its fullest extent. I like to watch people singing all together in a room like a church sing-song. To me, this is one of the few places in the world where I feel that people are sincerely having a great time in each other's company, when they're all singing together. Very rarely do you find a group of people anywhere else in any other capacity that are having a great old time together. When I listen to the radio, I often listen to Christian talk radio because they're always talking about positive life stories and such on shows like Focus on the Family or Turning Point, among many others. Unshackled is a Christian show made up of radio plays about people's lives, unshackled.org. The movie Zelig by Woody Allen was a good look at conformity. Take the money and run, 1969, also by Woody, is a funny look at the world of capitalism. The movie Beautiful Dreamers, 1990, National Film Board of Canada, is about a couple of freethinkers in the Old West. In the 1973 movie Paper Chase about a bunch of kids in law school, there's a short scene in there where the girl is telling her ex-boyfriend what a schmuck he is for being brainwashed by the paper chase of law school, telling him his only hope to save his soul may be to flunk out. The movie Harrison Bergeron is a science fiction movie set in the future where the American government controls all the people by making them wear a band and programming their thoughts through what else, TV shows. Another good movie worth checking out is Henry Fool, 1997. If I find a good conversationalist who enjoys talking about all manner of intellectual and philosophical discourse just for the fun of it, it's great to have a deep, meaningless conversation now and then to get it all out. If you can swing it, live near a college campus. The atmosphere keeps you young, plus you can use many of the facilities like their track, gym, and their library, and sometimes they have cultural events like live theater and cultish, offbeat films. Sign up for one course, it gives you a student card which you can use for the sports facilities, library, etc. I already mentioned my love of nature, but another great love is the early morning before the sun rises, being out there watching the world wake up and the sun rise. It kind of puts it all into perspective. It's the same with the sunset. Going out to the ocean is another great source of inspiration where you can see the awesome power of nature close up. Nature in general is inspiration. Watching a fire is great for the mind. Ultimately, I create most of my inspiration out of thin air. I just keep going. You have two choices, either go or grow, it's that simple. Fountain of youth / constant action and enjoyment of life. You can divide the people of the world into two categories. Those that get it and live to release their aesthetic, spiritual, inspired, loving energy all the time as their source of joy, euphoria, and transcendence. Everybody else who are either following an illusion of the world, brainwashed by pop culture thrills and frivolous entertainment, constantly struggling just to get by, or are couch potatoes and human waste products with no will to release any inspired energy they may have felt at some point in their lives in the past. In our modern world in the West, we have the means to earn a living for ourselves while pursuing this type of lifestyle. When you use up your time every day releasing a lot of inspired aesthetic energy, you're feeling good to great most of the time, plus the fact that this is the only bona fide fountain of youth that exists to help you maximize your chances of living a long, happy life. But even still, I can't understand why most people haven't figured it out yet, or maybe they're just too lazy to have the guts and the strength to aspire to live true to themselves. The transcendent feeling comes on while in the process and motion of doing something inspired that's usually physical and / or creative. That's why I laugh at the world with all their delusions and illusions, because they don't get it, chasing their trivial little ideas of material success or status and fame out in the community, which can't compete with the guy or gal taking their lives for a great ride of exertion, experience, expression, and sensations every day. A constant action and enjoyment of life is the only way to live a good feeling life. I own nothing but my mind, body, and soul. Every day I take them out for a good to great run, which is no different than taking a dog out for a run. When he gets into it, he starts feeling good. At the end of it, he feels great because he blew a good load of his natural energy. Nothing can hold a candle to the constant motion of a life well lived, following its pure essence, the way it was conceived and created to live. Happiness and fulfillment are that simple. While the rest of the world follows their illusions that they got from out there somewhere, I listen to myself and live purely and simply without getting polluted by all that stuff. I live to get transcendent and euphoric feelings for myself by doing things that make me feel good, euphoric, free and high. This attempt to free oneself from the generic mundanity of the human condition through activities you do is an attempt to reach the heavens, to be with the gods, to feel godlike for a little while every day when you're fully engaged in some intense, inspired, sensual or loving activity. Sometimes you can reach it through the use of mind-altering substances too. People who live like me know what I'm talking about. Most people don't live like this. They either don't realize that this is what really matters or live for other, more tangible, dull things that the system holds up as success in life, but I don't play that game. As long as I've got my basic bills covered and the free time to do what I want unbothered, I will live every day to release a high, intense dose of my natural energy in order to feel like I'm going for a pretty damn good run with my life right now, today. That's the enlightened free spirit standard of how life should be lived. Everything else is either bull, minor or meaningless next to this. I don't have to waste my time playing the game of the world looking for something out there to fill me up because I know it doesn't exist. Enlightenment is to realize your entire sense of well-being is tied up in knowing your own personal standard of life and doing your best to honor it all the time. I've seen all the silver, gold, illusions and delusions the world has to offer. Beyond having enough money to do what I want without the need for excess or extravagance, they mean nothing to me. The game is to honor my soul. You should answer to yourself and not bow down to anything else. For free, enlightened people, life is reduced to a constant intense release of their spirits, an eternal purging of the inspired energy within as though it was their lifeblood or fountain of youth. If you simply constantly continue to release your inspired energy and live that way, knowing that this is what really makes you happy, you'll live a transcendent, inspired and euphoric life. There are 2 rules to follow if you want to honor your own personal blueprint of free spiritism. 1. Right now, at this moment, I am striving to be the person I was born to be in my pure essence as a human being. 2. Every day, I work on honoring the standard of purity that is me in my soul by releasing all the natural primal, noble, intense, inspired, aesthetic, loving energy I feel coursing through my veins. Life for the truly enlightened is to dig deep, find your true essence, then seek to release it day by day in an attempt to capture truth, beauty, perfection, lust, love, transcendence, and joy in your own way to stay happy and calm and add to the progress and well-being of humanity somehow. If you want to feel like you're doing something worthwhile with your life to earn you your cash, self-respect and a sense of nobility. I see myself as an artist, bohemian hedonist. By definition, I live by my own thoughts and feelings and for them. They are my nirvana. My goal is to be as true and pure to them as possible. The purpose of life for me is to ride it to the hilt in order to capture moments of transcendence here and there through what I do, and also to culture a long-term sense of well-being about myself, which I do by constantly expending myself to my limits. This is nirvana to me, to blow a load of aesthetic primal spiritual loving energy every day that comes from my soul to help make me the person I want to be, then to sit back and enjoy my life for a little while after I do this before I go to sleep and repeat the process tomorrow. I don't know of any other definition of happiness that has teeth than this. It's my attempt to constantly go after the perfect feeling. Real wealth is inner wealth, what you travel with in mind, body, and soul. In school and in your general upbringing, education and a good job are emphasized. Materialism is emphasized, to get a job to earn a comfortable living. For the vain and arrogant, it goes beyond money to encompass popularity, fame, and status, people buying stuff and doing things because they want to be admired by others, which seems to be a common motive for many of criminals profiled on the TV show American Greed. I come from a working family. I delivered morning newspapers, then I worked at my father's meat store for several years while I went to college, but I always had an inner voice that told me I should do this or that for my own inspiration, hedonism, pleasure, and happiness. I got brainwashed by capitalism a little bit, a desire to make a lot of money and be cool or at least look successful. I had to take on the system image as a responsible person when I took certain jobs, but I was able to hold onto my real self in a half-assed, compromise way until I hit about 27 years old, when I realized that I'm a loner, worlds apart in thought from everybody else. I should live my own life. I came to the realization that I have to earn money in the world but do not have to sell my soul to it. Now at 61, I'm still doing the same few things I enjoyed doing as a child and a young man. Nothing changes from the real natural essential you. You are your true nature. It can be altered by altering one's brain chemistry through alcoholism, drug addiction, or dementia, but in most people, the soul/inner voice is always there inside, even if it's covered by all the lies a person gets brainwashed by. This is a big cause of sadness, how far you are away from your true self. If you're a couch potato or pursuing the artificial values of the world, you are disrespecting your own soul. That's why you feel empty or like something is missing. You're lucky if you realize that you have a true nature that you must honor by releasing your natural energy to that end all the time. Keep a hold of your soul all your life by constantly doing the few things you enjoy doing, no matter what is going around you. No law of attraction. There is no law of attraction. There is you creating your life. You don't magically propel supernatural forces to conspire to help you just because you supposedly have good intentions. Everybody has got good intentions. Have you ever watched interviews of hardened criminals or terrorists? Most think they're good people. The world would be flowing with overabundance if the law of attraction was true. Everybody thinks they're so good, loving, true, and honest. Inaction and inner voice. I think inaction is the greatest source of sadness. When I'm inactive, my inner voice tells me I'm losing myself. Get up. Do something. What the great thinkers say about life. Try these 2 YouTube channels to see what our alleged great human thinkers say about life. Philosophy Overdose. Philosophies for Life. I wrote my book A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment to explain what enlightenment is. It's really simple once you get there, but the hard part is getting there. Then once you get there, it can still be a daily struggle to have the will to get up and release your natural energy. Dante Alighieri wrote the 7 deadly sins in the Divine Comedy for a reason, because all human beings are fallible, potentially lazy and evil. Everybody gets old. Aging brings a loss of willpower and natural inspiration. Enlightenment is simple. There has to be one gestalt moment when you realize they might have taught you some useful stuff in grade school, in church, on TV, etc., but all you own and know for sure is that purity that is your true nature given by God or whatever created you at birth. Your only obligation in life is to follow it to fruition one day at a time through intuition/your free spirit. My contract with God or life is to release the natural energy inside of me almost every day barring rest days without buying into the artificial values of the world. All I own is an internal standard that tells me what to do to be happy with myself. All I own is my body and soul right here, right now. So what if my bank account says I'm worth $1 billion? What can I do with it? Buy a lot of cocaine, then overdose and die. I don't have the inner constitution to get people to do embarrassing things for money, which is why I would never hire a hooker. It's morally wrong. Everybody knows it. Somebody having sex for money violates the rule of respecting others. You're using this artificial thing called money to demean someone. It's rape. I have to earn a living out in the world, but beyond that, I own my soul and live by it without any kind of shame or conformity to the world. I simply don't care about the matrix called the outside world. I'll die alone in my own thoughts facing my God. I'll age as well as I can, then die without being a sniveling coward about it. I have no pride in the world. I seek only superficial politeness with people, not deep conversations that could lead to disagreements. I'm cynical enough as it is after all those religion classes as a kid learning about how disgusting humans are in the Old Testament. Jesus said, "Love your fellow man." I find this an unnatural way of being. I try to be a decent, helpful person, but in order to avoid conflicts and avoid getting exploited or ripped off by others, I try to keep minimal contact with people in general. I'm happy by myself, thinking my own thoughts, doing what I feel is naturally right for me. I'm not gonna go out and kill somebody or rape them for thrills. I was watching the TV series Forensic Files on YouTube.com through a channel called Medical Detectives, Forensic Files. If you watch all 414 episodes, you realize a lot of people are evil, disgusting scumbags. A lot of human beings have no problem exploiting others. My other book, An Inspiration Guide, how to feel good most of the time is mostly about what other people besides me say about how to feel good, happy, and peaceful. They all fail because they come out with lists, steps, strategies, and all that other one-liner crap. It's just about one thing. I am my true nature given by God. I owe it to the spirit of life to release this natural energy inside of me all the time to match my internal standard, not the evil stuff that everyone has inside of them: anger, greed, jealousy, violence, lust, addictions, gluttony, etc., but a mix of being a good, productive, useful person and being a harmless hedonist who doesn't hurt others in the process of getting my thrills. Chapter 2. Inspiration 2. Why I don't believe in dreams. The idea of dreams is a capitalist ideology that says work hard and imagine big things for yourself as a rich person somewhere over the rainbow. A capitalist dream is not a state of being the way I live. I was listening to someone close to me talk about things like, if I get rich, I'll do this, I want a mansion, etc. For me, it's one a day at a time, living by my state of being, which is about releasing my natural energy all the time. That's what makes me feel good, releasing my energy. I just saw some true life crime show about a chiropractor in Vegas who gave it up to chase his dream of being a professional poker player. He lost a bunch of money. His wife killed him. The world is a broken dream if individuals have dreams from the outside world and measure themselves in terms of what's on any celebrity gossip show or any of those large and in charge shows on TV. I recently heard that some of those women on those fake reality housewife shows are getting paid $1 million a year by the producers to be on that show. People watch that stuff and think it's real that people have several houses and nothing to do all day long but frivolous things. I don't define myself by anything outside of my own mind. I live one day at a time. People say motivation doesn't last. Only unenlightened people and idiots say this. If you're a brainwashed person following the artificial values of the world, you're setting goals and working hard to achieve them, which is teddywees and mechanical. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. If you're an enlightened person and know your true nature, your purpose is to release a good load of your natural energy every day with love, intensity, and joy for the process. That's why Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Newton, and many others never had problems with motivation or inspiration. They were doing what they were created for. They got up every day wanting to release the natural life force within themselves. That's all a great life, releasing the natural, inspired, joyful, hedonistic and practical energy from within yourself. A constant ride of eternal vitality. What I feel and do every day is all I own, a short ride of finite time, and I sure as hell ain't gonna let the indoctrinating forces of society get a piece of me to waste my life chasing these silly illusions that the system has set up for us. As a kid growing up, I didn't care about the phony hype of professional sports, what kind of car anybody drove. They're all hunks of metal to me. What was supposedly cool on TV, who the latest big, bad manufactured pop stars supposedly were. I wanted substance in my life, a feeling within that I was accessing what was in my own independent, unique spirit as intensely and solidly as I could within my particular ride of the human condition the way I was created. That's why I'm still as primal and untamed as ever, and I feel fine. Even the divine power of religion couldn't stop me from being true to myself, partially because of all the hypocrisy that is rampant within most people claiming to be religious, as I discuss later. I felt there was something else for me in my life. I didn't discover it until I started living freely, realized I had an inner pulse of life away from the system, and the only way I could constantly feel good was to live by it and honor it every single day of my life. The goal in life for people like me is to live in a higher, more euphoric, and transcendent state of consciousness than normal, everyday reality as much as I can, and I do it generally by thinking about it, releasing large amounts of intense inspired physical, creative, and intellectual energy, relishing in activities that I perceive to be aesthetically pleasing, trying to be as relaxed as possible, pursuing hedonism for its own sake, seeking out interesting and meaningful emotional connections with people and pets, in essence, having fun, enjoying my life for what it is, pure and clear, away from all those agendas out there masquerading as cool, glittery, and successful. In order to be an enlightened free spirit, you have to earn your self-respect every single day of your life by doing whatever it is that you feel you must from within yourself, provided you're free enough to know what's really in there, as opposed to being clouded over by all the crap from the outside world. You have to do what inspires you and makes you feel good with some kind of intense gusto, kinda like you took your life for a good ride today and purged all that natural potential energy inside on all cylinders, not just the productive, pro-social, and ambitious, but also the aesthetic, hedonistic, esoteric, primal, psychedelic, and mystical. This is the only way you're gonna really feel great about your life, as opposed to the generic standard of feeling good out there, which seems to be a media-saturated, pop culture, materialistic, comfortable kind of complacency indoctrinated into most of us about what's cool, happening, and successful. In a repressed society such as ours, food replaces the main natural sources of pleasure, which are sex and the pursuit of euphoric highs. An enlightened free spirit knows that sexual pleasure and the pursuit of intoxicating, altered states of consciousness are good, so he does not live under any delusion that these are bad and that he should live by some illusory straight and narrow path that a bunch of clods and hypocritical parrots out there created. Inspiration is the major key to life, along with the pursuits of hedonism and love, but this is where a lot of free spirits and creative types falter, because they won't bend a little bit to have the sense, foresight, nor the desire to live in the real world enough to realize they have one responsibility, which is to earn a living for themselves, to keep a roof over their heads and get enough money to buy the things they want. You have to figure out a way to be useful to other people by either helping, inspiring, or amusing them somehow in order to earn you your cash. Most geniuses, inventors, freethinkers, artists, and creative visionaries throughout history, and to a lesser extent because they're in a limited situation, some inspired business owners and people who work regular jobs, have lived by the ideals of free spiritism, whether they realized it or not. A lot of people out there are like me in lifestyle, only they haven't thought it through enough to understand why they are who they are. Many of them come to the realization that you have to do things that make you feel good about yourself, but they don't come to the understanding that it's a process of necessarily constantly releasing your three major energies in a fluctuating mix. Inspired, mostly physical, intellectual, creative. Hedonistic, aesthetic. Loving, affectionate. The big fallacy of the conventional capitalist world is that it sets you up to try to achieve a picture-perfect postcard thumbnail of your life, made-up material things, and the achievement of a certain level of status in the world, which, when you reach it, when you have arrived at this picture in your mind, so to speak, you think your life will be magically transformed into an inner sense of feeling good all the time from that point on. But the truth is that it doesn't matter what you surround yourself with materially beyond the basics of comfort, nor what the world tells you about how great and fascinating you are. You will find that, if and when you get to this illusory place of success and coolness bottled up in your mind, that your headspace will not have changed. You will still be stuck in the same you. Your qualitative experience of life will not go up because of these things. It only goes up through inspired, intense actions from the soul, when you're consciously following an inner standard you live by. The bottom line is that life is a continuous, constantly flowing fluid entity. It doesn't matter what you achieve or how great or bad any one moment in time is, life goes on. If you're not wise enough to know you have to keep replicating your good experiences over and over again, then you will be living in some illusion that's not real, like the many people I see around saving trophies, certificates, photographs, scrapbooks, and news clippings of past glory days. So what? That time is gone. It doesn't matter anymore. Life moves forward only for enlightened people. You keep creating it. Once you're enlightened, you reach a certain state of consciousness in your head that stays the same regardless of what you're surrounded by, good, bad, high or low. Most people live by transient moods caused by their changing emotions in response to the things that happen to them and around them. A truly enlightened person doesn't let the outside world affect their inner states all that much, if at all. They stay stable regardless of what happens out there, either good or bad. Life is a fluid commodity that must be always used up through intense inspired living in order to constantly hold onto a transcendent feeling of eternal vitality. It's about enjoyment, to make friends with your your carnal hedonistic whims, play the field if you want, fall in love if you want, and dedicate yourself to the well-being of a few other people, but it's all about doing what you feel is right because it comes from your own inner standard in your soul, being yourself purely and freely away from the massive tsunami of cultural indoctrination that has somewhat destroyed just about everybody's ability to be who they really are purely and freely. In our modern day, media-driven, one-dimensional mainstream society, a free individual tries to reach his or limits in what they want and relishes in all of life's possible experiences, the tough, hard, relaxing, sensual, fun, romantic, loving, transcendent, mystical and psychedelic, anything that comes from within oneself as opposed to being led by the forces of cultural indoctrination. Be good to yourself in all the major ways. Find the meaning in your soul. Live for your inspired sense of beauty and destiny. Pursue love if you want. Relish in your own version of hedonistic pleasures. Find out what it takes to keep you feeling good in a transcendent kind of way day after day. Use the inherent goodness and power I presume you feel in your soul to earn a living for yourself and be a kind and understanding citizen, but only if you want to, only if you feel it's right in any situation. Don't force it. It has to come naturally from your essence, from your true feelings within yourself, otherwise it's not real, it's a fake kind of civility, production, achievement, ambition, or goodness created by the conventional rules of society. An enlightened free spirit in a free society doesn't owe anybody anything. His first allegiance is to the divine part of him, the soul that his God gave him. Whatever goodness he finds in there, it's his option to do what he wants with it. You can do anything you want. The only rule is don't hurt anyone else in the process. Whatever you do with people, do it with consenting adults as opposed to children who are not mature enough as of yet to understand their lives and have a responsible sense of their free will. Don't be mean and bad unless someone is mean and bad to you, then you have the right to give them a dose of equitable justice. This is my code. I don't turn the other cheek as the religion of my youth taught me to do. Somebody has to stand up to the bullies of the world and put them in their place. I mind my own business, I don't infringe on the rights of others, but if someone messes with me, I will do whatever I can to get my justice while minimizing the risk of going to jail for it. A perfect, transcendent moment. I know why most people in prosperous, Western societies live generic, one-dimensional lives of mundane comfort. They have been brainwashed by the world system, seduced by it, or are too lazy and weak to confront who they really are in their pure essences as human beings, then live by it. We all have an insular Tahiti of beauty, truth, lust, love, perfection, and glory hidden away deep within our souls. The enlightened free spirits consciously try to live in this zone of transcendence by constantly purging their bodily, aesthetic, and spiritual energies as intensely as they can. Most people get a wisp of a perfect, transcendent moment here and there where they feel tapped into their eternal, divine souls, but quickly bury it away because to acknowledge it would be to acknowledge that they have failed at their lives so far by not following what they really feel in their deepest cores, which is what a perfect moment is, seeing and feeling yourself as you really are in your purest essence, then striving to live by it. This is the cause of virtually all the misery in our modern, Western society, where most people have a reasonable standard of living and are not constantly struggling to get by. They simply do not follow what they really feel in their primal essences as individual human beings, then wonder why, despite their success in the so-called real world, they still feel so empty and unfulfilled inside. An enlightened free spirit is someone who says to themselves, the world is pretty screwed up. Most people are at least somewhat deluded or full-blown lost souls following some illusion from out there. On top of that, the world is trying to turn me every which way to try to get me to buy into one illusion or another. Screw them all. I'll listen to myself and live by the sanctity within my soul. We are all a bunch of loners, each walking around stuck in our own heads. You spend most of each day by yourself alone in your head, regardless of what you do, how sociable and loving you are, or what kind of network of people you're surrounded by and live with. That's the way life really works. When you realize this, you realize everybody is on a level playing field because your happiness, euphoria, and sense of inspiration is something only you can experience in your head. All those people out there with their pretenses and masks of superiority in the guise of money, status, power, coolness, image, popularity, and formal credentials mean nothing because everybody creates their own lives and everybody lives out the same stretch of time mostly alone in their own heads. The number of zeros in your bank account beyond having your basic standard of living covered and what other people think of you sometimes called your status, popularity, or image out in the world cannot elevate your state of consciousness much for very long. If you're an insecure flake without a strong sense of identity, you might try to latch onto the fact that you have lots of money or that people give you attention to try to make you feel good in the moment, but these things don't last because happiness only comes from knowing who you are in your essence, then constantly releasing this energy through inspired aesthetic loving action. The world cannot give you much. You have to create it for yourself day by day. I learned this the long way around. I went out into the world to experience every type of geographic location, person, and experience I could within the means I had, looking for the answers to life, specifically what must I do to be happy and feel right about myself as opposed to what the world defines for me as happiness and success. In the process, I saw that I was a brainwashed clone like just about everybody around me, even though pretty well on one will ever admit to it. At the end of my long apprenticeship out in the world, which took approximately 15 years, I came back to me in my essence as an individual. The big difference between me as a young, naive guy with no knowledge or experience of the real world to me as an older, cynical guy who had been there, done that for just about everything the world holds up as cool, fun, off the hook or enlightening, is that I got it all out of my system and now I know what's real and what's a bunch of crap. I saw all these illusions the world presents as cool, enlightening, fun stuff, and they didn't rock my world, so to speak, so I was left with me alone. That's when I discovered what enlightenment is. You can be deluded into thinking that owning an expensive sports car or being called the big cheese at Factory X will elevate your state of consciousness and make you feel superior to the average guy or gal, but in all the minutes of every day, it's just you alone in your head, and all this outer stuff doesn't really help you live a euphoric, inspired lifestyle. What we call society is really a bunch of loner individuals buying into some common formula or delusion in life out there that most of us subscribe to, or at least pretend to, in order to give off and feel the illusion that we're all somehow connected, which a lot of people need, to feel that they're united with something greater than themselves. The New Age movement banks on it, telling you that we're all united in this brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity, while I laugh cynically and observe that most families are not loving. Most couples have convenience relationships as opposed to profound, intimate ones. Most people barely know their neighbors. People in general are inherently self-centered, and most get progressively less sociable as they age, yet some new age guru is trying to tell me we're all united as brothers and sisters, righteously loving each other as divine souls who came from the creator force in the universe. That's kind of funny. If we're all so united in life and so loving towards our fellow humans, then why do we, on this side of the ocean, live in such wealth and excess while we're perfectly aware that 30,000 children die every day of malnutrition and lack of medicines on the other side of the ocean? Then we pretend to be so concerned when some weather calamity hits, when anybody who knows what's going on knows there's a calamity every day on the planet as a matter of routine. And what about man's inhumanity to man every night when you watch what they call the news on TV? Telling us we're all alike and united is a great tool of control to get us all thinking like a school of fish. A pure conscience is the only true religion. The conventional self-help clones will get you to put your life into about 6 little boxes: work and career, body and health, relationships and family, finance and home, social life, hobbies/recreation, and God, which I see in all the many Christian self-help books out there. Then they'll dedicate at least 75% of their book or tape program into firing you up to set goals and work on them little by little, day by day, like a machine, crossing everything else out, which is where they all fail. They don't realize that life doesn't work like this. It's a challenging, inspiring, hard-working, sensuous and hedonistic exploration of time all in one varied flow. Anything else is less than a full life and will fall flat because it's not a balance of inspired work, spiritual centering, love and affection, sensual experience, play and rest. Religious leaders say they want their faithful flock to go to the local church, mosque, synagogue, or temple daily or weekly to glorify their gods, but the more pragmatic reason is to give them a regular pep talk because they know that most people don't have the inner strength to be tough-minded, hard-working, inspired, moral, righteous and good about their lives left to their own devices, because all the good intentions in the world fade when the average individual is alone, tired, fed up, stressed out and faced with both sensuous temptations like eating too much of the wrong foods because they taste good and moral temptations like when you see an opportunity to steal something with little probability of getting caught or feel you should lie to make things go easier for you. If you're wise, you'll realize you have a spiritual moral nature inside of you, built in when you were born. In any situation, you inherently know the right way you ought to act, even though oftentimes lower order motives win over and you act contrary to the righteous, compassionate nature you feel inside that you know is the right way. Somebody once said a pure conscience is the only true religion. If you live by whatever dignity you feel within yourself, you'll have a clear conscience and a peaceful life. While I applaud the religious forces of the world in all their capacities, this subservience to an external God is still not as strong as the individual connected to his or her own soul, his own essence, who knows what he must do in order to be strongly inspired and true to himself without relying on God for guidance and comfort. I meet alleged religious folk all the time who break down morally and emotionally when things don't go their way. As soon as the world craps on them, they feel cheated, so set out to get their revenge and slash or recover their lost material wealth any way they can. Their belief in their God doesn't seem to sustain their ability to act as Jesus would in these circumstances. After all, they're only human. What do you expect out of fallible human beings without a strong sense of identity as to who they really are beyond their cursory claim to be children of God? Most successful people in a capitalist world are able to use the conventional self-help methods of setting goals and working on them little by little, day by day, to ploddingly go after what they want in a mechanical way, but it's boring, empty, and tough to stay inspired, not to mention what happens when you get tired, tempted by other things, reach this goal or don't reach it. Life still goes on day after day. You still have to live with yourself. How do you keep staying inspired, vital, calm and enjoying your life regardless of what happens to you in the paper chase of the rat race? The answer should be obvious. Believe in God if you want, because He's a positive force for the world, but combine your God and your individual soul all in one such that you believe God gave you an awesome, divine power in your soul through which He implanted His seed of goodness particular to your unique journey of life. He uses you to speak to the world as His representative by doing the particular things you feel you must from your soul. You, as a fully contained individual receptacle of thought, can be an instrument for your God simply by listening to the positive aspects of this natural potential energy in your soul, acting on it, living by it, while being wise enough to know you can't go around lashing out and killing people every time you get angry and things don't go your way, lest you end up a victim of revenge or in jail, which means your life will be wasted. So learn to deal with it. Displace the anger as much as you can through positive activities. Learn to be calm, live by the golden rule of live and let live, and use the natural, inspired, divine spark that lives inside of you to do something that entertains, inspires, or helps people, earns you your cash and gives you the sense inside that you're doing what you were created for, that you're manifesting the destiny you feel you must because you feel it as the song in your soul that seems to come from some powerful force beyond you. Nothing else will do. Everything else is either minor amusement or irrelevant next to this unique inner voice that your God implanted into at your conception/birth. As an enlightened free spirit trying to honor what's pure, primal, and divine within me, this is the conclusion I've come to. Whether it comes from universal natural law as determined by some unknown cosmic energy in the universe, or whether it comes from the God of Abraham, Mohammed, Dionysus, Thor, or Krishna, is irrelevant to me. This is where I've come to by analyzing the base me as naked and deeply as I could. Maybe it's just instinct, a product of evolution, but even still, it's all I got. It's the highest order of my life, so I'll follow it over and above everything the world throws at me about how to live. The purpose of art is for the artist to take the experience of the human condition as far as he or she can go with it. The expression of this inspired energy could be for their own benefit to see how far they can go with their lives or it could be for the benefit of humanity to try to get others to see their version of beauty, truth, or perfection such that it moves them in some emotional, gut, primal way to inspire them to do something with their lives that transcends the usual fare of a regular job, food, the shopping mall and TV. A rare breed. The outside world has spiritually polluted us. I don't know if there's a God and I don't question it, but I do know that what I am and what I feel is the greatest thing this universe has created so far. I trust it over and above all the collective knowledge, wisdom, and bunk the world routinely blasts at me every day if I choose to turn the TV on, listen to the radio, read the newspaper, visit websites, or talk to brainwashed people. My essence as a human being is the most powerful force in the universe to me. The only other forces I trust is if I sense other people are being honest with me from the bottom of their hearts without feeding me a line of bull they got from out there somewhere. From where I stand, having lived in a number of different areas in North America, I'm one of the few people left in a Western, media-saturated world who is true enough to himself to not be swayed by the outside world in any way at all beyond my need to earn a basic living for myself. This is a rare breed of human being, but it's the best way to live if you can come to this realization that you have to try to pursue an intense release of inspired sensual loving energy every single day in order to keep feeling good to great about your life. Nothing else will keep you feeling good in a transcendent way, not all the gold in the world, all the tea in China, all the cool clothes from the Gap, nor a bunch of people telling you how great, fabulous, cool, happenin', off the hook, A-list, and in crowd you are. I've grown to expect the fact that most people I come across are brainwashed to some extent. They muckle onto something from out there rather than listening to that natural, primal divine voice within themselves. I used to think that more people were enlightened and able to see past all these illusions and distractions presented by the world system in order to control people and sell them things to make money, but after coming across so many people chasing one illusion or another in my 47 years on this planet, I've now come to the conclusion that there are very few people who can think freely away from cultural indoctrination and live enlightened lives trying for a glorious human experience for its own sake above the general mundanity of the human condition, regardless of what others think. But the greatest delusion of all is the self-delusion that you're free, wise, happy, and enlightened. The pop culture and capitalist forces, through their advertising and media images, market people at you who seem to be living great, wealthy, successful, cool lives, and they present the path to this as working hard to earn lots of money to buy all these stupid things. But if you buy into this lifestyle of material excess and an image of coolness defined by them as the key to happiness, you're setting yourself up for a dull, generic, uninspired life because it's not real and day-to-day life. Having an honest relationship with yourself is not about this. It's about knowing who you are and living every day to release this natural essence that is you as intensely, greatly, and gloriously as you can. It's about intense, inspired, sensual, loving action rather than the type of car you drive, the size of your house, or the type of home decor crap you put into it, because the truth is, beyond the basics, none of this stuff changes the way you feel inside, and if it does, then you're really a lost soul. Artist/approved narcissist. The ideal is within you, and the obstacle to reaching this ideal is also within you. You already possess all the material from which to create your ideal self. Thomas Carlyle. Walk in beauty. Native saying about being whole. What you are is your wealth, not the material things you're surrounded by. Every artist free spirit is generally a born-again person, because even though you might have wisps of who you are as a kid, as young people we're all conditioned by the world around us, and only a few of us ever get beyond it enough to realize our inner states don't jive with the greater culture. Everywhere I look, I see the conformist capitalist work ethic, junk food, materialism ideology. So unless you've had that awakening like Stephen Dedalus on the beach in James Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a young man, you don't see life as a free-spirited, creative adventure despite what front you might put on about how cool and enlightened you are. Consider Jim Morrison of The Doors, an alternative rock group in the 60s. Some say he might have gone off the deep end with his decadence and excess, but he had the right idea. He believed that the spirit of some dead native Indian he saw in a car accident as a kid entered into him, which tells me he lived in a kind of esoteric spiritual flowing space beyond the convention of bread and circuses. He understood that the hidden parts of the subconscious mind were where life should be centered. The name of his band The Doors comes from the phrase by William Blake, "When the doors of perception are cleansed, things will appear as they really are." The Doors of Perception was the title of a book written by Aldous Huxley, another life explorer who helped popularize the use of hallucinogenic substances. Marcel Proust, through the book In Search of Lost Time, reduced life down into two types of people. Those tied down to their petty obsessions. Those with the freedom to release their spirits. Artistry, the pursuit of truth, no matter how enlightening or horrible, beauty and perfection, in any capacity is approved narcissism for those lucky enough to get paid for it, but the catch is that even though you do it for yourself to expunge the energy inside, you do it because you love your life so much you want to reach its limits, and in the process of doing so, you want to pass your particular brand of inspiration onto the world, whether by a conscious act of love for humanity or as an inadvertent byproduct of your efforts. To my way of thinking, artists are among the most selfless people in the world, because it's not about working a functional job for them in order to earn their money to live mundanely comfortable lives, it's about the spirit of life itself. This is one way to distinguish cheesy pop culture from true art, the intent behind it. Creative people often sacrifice all the vagaries of a capitalist world to be themselves, which, for the most part, is a thankless job. Not that this bothers them all that much, but shows their belief in that unique genetic seed that houses their humanity, which is a testament to humanity as a whole and their love for it, because they love their lives so much they want to experience them fully to the deepest depths. And when we see someone being themselves intensely as a unique artist in some way, it reassures that feeling with the enlightened among us that we are a noble, high-reaching species of being, despite all the mundanity and triviality in the small minds of the limited people that surround us. Think of those wisps of life you sometimes get after you've been dreaming, then wake up and remember a few images before they dissipate rapidly. I don't know if it's some defense mechanism the body has to forget about dreams very quickly to keep us in the dark somehow about our own lives, but the purpose of life to me is to live such that the hidden part of me buried away in my dreams is on the surface as close to my conscious reality as possible. You could call it searching for the holy grail of your life. I call it my raison d'etre, my defining purpose in life. It's all I give a damn about, to break that barrier of what lies hidden away deep inside of me that I believe houses some connection with our primordial roots that could be linked to a higher power. Nobody knows for sure, but I feel a strong need to engage this obsession I have to get beyond this physical mundane existence most of us seem satisfied with. Time waits for no one. You'll age, wither away, lose your spiritually inspired vitality, assuming you ever had it in the first place, then die away. The purpose of life is to keep renewing yourself through inspiration, love, and hedonism, to keep you young till death do you part. As long as you keep doing this, you'll enjoy your life. I don't care what other people say about me, because I know I'm right and know that many enlightened people throughout history were castigated for their visionary thoughts, so I'll live a good life regardless and offer you my little bit of wisdom, but what you do with it won't affect me either way. I already know I've touched the highest vision of my soul by understanding myself as highly as any person can, which is what I perceive I was born for, to study the process of life itself, live it as a constant learning experience, and pass my inspiration on to anyone who feels they might learn from it to live inspired, glorious lives for themselves. Transcendence to me is the soul of free spiritism, an attempt to get a little higher than the mundane lives most of us are accustomed to day after day. It's a psychedelic spiritual carnal mix, a search for intense sensations of pleasure and higher states of consciousness, something like Van Gogh when he sat out one night drinking wine, probably doing opium, painting Starry Night. He was living the passion of the moment, feeling his fullest primal essence as a human being, out there trying to capture the feeling of a mortal soul in the midst of the grandeur of the heavens, being as alive and pure as he could be to see the true simple beauty of his life, trying to feel a visionary, romantic grandiose adventure that goes beyond the generic fare of the day-to-day routine, a reverence for the sanctity of life because he as well as all enlightened masters know only too well how fleeting and finite it is. Prototype free spirits to me are characters like Ovid the senator in ancient Rome, banished to an island where he developed his treatise called Metamorphoses while living an enchanted life indulging his ID, or Paul Gauguin, the French banker turned artist who went down to Tahiti in the 1890s to follow his true nature, indulging both his creative and hedonistic whims. Despite the mainstream's attempt to portray Timothy Leary as a loose cannon, he explored his life as deeply as anyone could and expressed it through such works as Your Brain is God and The Delicious Grace of Moving One's Hand, Intelligence is the Ultimate Aphrodisiac, Leary.com. Van Gogh was more tortured, but he understood the need to express the id/subconscious mind/soul. He didn't wait for Christmas Eve to try to capture a magical feeling through religion, nor did he care much about the capitalist world he lived in. He just tried to live pure and free. Joseph Campbell in The Power of the Myth said, "You must have a place where you can simply experience and bring forth what you are and what you might be. This is the place of creative incubation. This is the most important thing in life, to follow your own bliss wherever it takes you." Big Brother Guide. In the novel 1984 by George Orwell, they first make the nonconformist Winston Smith denounce the people he loves, then betray himself. After that, they let him loose and we don't hear much about him until near the very end, when he's sitting in the bar watching the force on the big screen talk about the war and how our side was winning. In that one instant he realizes he has become a part of the system because he now has an emotional attachment to what they're saying on the box. He's now a willing part of that story, that charade, that society. He has sold at least a part of his soul to it. It's no longer about him trusting himself, following his own path. He's now buying into the paternalistic paradigm, let others like his big brother and the kindly-looking, wise, old men on the box tell him what's best for him and how he should live his life, and he will follow because he wants that comfy feeling that as long as he follows them, someone is looking out for him, all is well, and he will feel that cozy and reassured feeling within himself. He's no longer an individual living by his own thoughts and his own standard. He's now part of the machine by virtue of being emotionally invested in it, therefore one of its protectors and cheerleaders. It's no different than what's going on nowadays. People get emotionally invested in that stuff they show us called the news, the game of politics, which side wins in professional sports, who is the supposed celebrity of the day, and they watch those sitcoms, drama shows and movies to develop intimate relationships with these strangers on them they don't even know. This is Big Brother. He doesn't have to hit us over the head. He seduces us with junk food, hair coloring, cosmetics, big trucks and cheap TV shows. He tells us what's cool and fun, and since we want to be cool and have fun while appeasing our big brother by conforming to what he wants, we go along with it, most of us without realizing we are being manipulated or questioning any of it. Chapter 3. Inspiration 3. Cold weather saps energy. If you live up north, the cold weather will sap your soul every winter. If you can swing it, move south. There's plenty of land, enough jobs, real estate is pretty cheap in many places, and it's so much better when it's 70 degrees out in the middle of January while the poor souls up north are either stuck in a building or freezing their butts off. It's cheaper to live in the south than in the north for consumer goods and other things like heating costs, wear and tear on your car, no need for boots or heavy coats, etc. Cultural brainwash saps souls. What do I mean by brainwash? Well, for starters, it's the delusion that owning an excessive amount of money and material things beyond a normal standard of basic comfort will increase your happiness, which is not true, because once you have your basic needs met, you create happiness by the way you live day by day, not through what you own. The other big delusion of cultural brainwash is that your status out in the community, Your fame/popularity, aka what other people think of you, has some bearing on how happy you are, which is a lie because we're all loners in our heads, and what other people think of us means nothing next to the personal challenge of matching your own personal standard of becoming the person you want to be, day by day. We all live alone in our thoughts. Nobody knows what anybody else is really thinking, but if they did, they would see people thinking about the most important thing to them, which is themselves and their particular little bubble of life. They're not thinking about other people much, therefore your self-perception as a cool, happening, very important person in the community doesn't really mean much, because people don't really care much about you either way, good or bad, unless you're in their face, bugging them or can do something for them. No matter how you cut it, they're not spending their time thinking about either how wonderful or nasty you are. They don't care. They're too busy thinking about themselves. This is a big delusion people under 25 often have. They think that the world is revolving around them and people are actually devoting some of their time to thinking about them because they're so fascinating, cool and special. But if they find enlightenment, they'll realize that people are much too self-centered to spend much time thinking about other people, except for their one or two intimates in life, and even there, it's a stretch in a lot of cases. Only you can create your own happiness from within yourself. Other people cannot give you your sense of self-respect, and self-respect is the base of all happiness. You need it to feel good about your life. You can get some happiness by loving your few intimates and them loving you back. Then there's happiness through the pursuit of pleasure, and after that comes all the low-level stuff society has brainwashed you with by calling it the path to happiness, such as acquiring more material goods than you need, getting a makeover, doing a home improvement job on your house, watching movies, TV shows, music videos, the cult of celebrity, eating good tasting food, coloring your hair, playing computer games, etc. All this stuff is virtually nothing next to knowing how to earn your self-respect every day and doing it. But this is why modern, Western society is screwed, and most of the people in it are not truly happy in the free, enlightened, inspired, aesthetic sense, because they're following the crap out there as their definition of happiness and success rather than following their true natures freely. It doesn't matter if you're a pop star or a movie star and you got hundreds of people lining up to get your autograph. First off, you'll age, then you'll be a has-been as the fickle public move on to the next flake of the month. Secondly, you answer to yourself only. What others think of you cannot affect you trying to honor who you are. If you're weak and stupid, you'll let transient praise or criticism from others affect how you feel. If you're smart, it won't affect you. You simply live by your own standard. Consumeristic brainwash is the big sales machine getting you hooked on clothes, cars, material things, pop culture entertainment, professional sports, etc., such that you think all this stuff is gonna do something for you to make you feel good to great, that this is the path to happiness. So you work your job to earn enough money to spend it on all this junk because the advertising machine tells you that this is what cool, trendy, successful people do for pleasure and entertainment. But to someone like me, it's all crap, mind and soul pollution that people let take them over rather than following who they really are in their souls in order to live original lives for themselves. These things are all meaningless to me in light of what's really going on in the world. But if you plug into any kind of mainstream media, you'll soon see that they deify pop culture pursuits, which have the effect of brainwashing our entire society to be a bunch of frivolous, misguided, deluded souls more concerned with looking for some kind of entertainment out there to fill them up rather than looking to discover what is original and inspired within themselves, then living by that standard. This is a big reason why our society is so sick and out of harmony with itself. We've given our minds and souls over to pop culture entertainment and the sales machine of capitalism to the extent that we don't live original, inspired lives for ourselves, nor bother to see all the need out there and try to help people by alleviating some of it in some way. We just want to eat junk food and plug into all that crap on the box. Eternal consumer, fake knowledge, brainwash. Life in a modern, media-soaked world of formal education credentials is everybody talking at you, presuming to know what's right for you better than you know yourself. Whatever happened to a person listening to themselves, thinking their own thoughts, developing their lives based on intuition, experiences, analysis, and decisions they make on their own as go along. If you allow it, you can let yourself get taken over by the world system at the expense of yourself. Many people let this happen by default because they're not strong enough to see that they have a distinct identity that they should honor, so they let themselves get seduced by all the stuff out there which fills them up instead of living by their own standards within themselves. All those forces out there want a piece of you one way or another, either your money, your mind, or your soul. They want you to be an eternal consumer and destroy yourself out in the world of work and business, thinking you're doing something great, worthy, and noble, but most of the time you're doing something that's common and expendable, sacrificing yourself for some image of happiness and success that originates out there somewhere. It's not inherent to the real you. Nobody or no entity on the planet can inspire me much. I inspire myself every day, all the time. All enlightened people eventually come to this way of living. They realize that a constant sense of inspiration is the key to life, and you have to figure out how to create it within yourself all the time. Nothing out there can give it to you, but a lot of people don't know this. They're looking out in the world for some answer or something to fulfill them and bring them a feeling of happiness, wholeness, success, fame, status, and pleasure, but that's the big lie and the grand illusion of the system. Most of us think that there's something out there that's gonna make us happy. We don't realize that the source of all happiness is knowing your true identity and living by it day after day. We live in a soppy world of fake knowledge where people in the religious fields, the academic fields called the social sciences, which were all created out of thin air by a bunch of introverted types masquerading as our system-sanctioned wise people, the New Age gurus, the pop culture entertainment industry, the capitalist corporate machine of consumerism, and people in the mass media are either trying to manipulate us into buying something we don't really need or trying to get us to buy into one idea or another in order to get some manner of control over us. This is a loose conspiracy of people who feel they are insiders within the mainstream system, protecting its views and promoting its values. These system people talk at us in an arrogant, condescending way, implying they're somehow superior to us, trying to indoctrinate us in one way or another to conform to some agenda they have, all the while claiming that they're teaching us to empower ourselves, as they like to say, while I'm looking at all of them saying, who are you to presume you have something over me that gives you the right, power, or authority to teach me anything or try to shove it down my throat in a manner that's so insidious that most people don't even know they're being manipulated. Anybody can go to school to learn so-called knowledge created by others, but this doesn't give you wisdom in life, even though the system seems to think so and routinely gives a bunch of unenlightened people their formal credentials that supposedly certifies them as wise, enlightened intellectuals, at least in what they call the social sciences, which is virtually all a bunch of verbal diarrhea created in the guise of studying the nature of the human condition, which is very simple, intuitive, and unpredictable when you get right down to it, because everybody sees the world differently from their own point of view, known to none but them, and people in general are emotionally reactive. They do what they feel in the moment, so you can only go so far in studying people, and the rest will always be a function of the situation at hand, which is why it's a useless lie to create big college departments and academic libraries dedicated to what they call the social sciences. All that collective wisdom in all those academic journals and system-sanctioned books adds exactly nothing to insight into the human soul. They certify all these people as psychologists, sociologists, therapists, psychiatrists, psychobablists, etc., giving them the system seal of approval to tell other people how to live their lives, when the truth is that most of them are system clones, regurgitating what they were taught in school. There's nothing original about these people, which is the first rule of enlightenment: follow yourself rather than follow what others tell you or what you read in a book or see on TV. They don't breathe a word about true wisdom, which comes from two places. 1. Analyzing what you feel intuitively within yourself as a case study of one. 2. Observing life as it happens around you, analyzing it to come to your own conclusions and insights. Academic and book knowledge takes a distant third in trying to understand your unique right of the human condition, but just about everybody is brainwashed to think that if you score high in tests about the dry courses they teach you, it means you're wise. It's a crock of crap. All it shows is that you're a conformist clone good at regurgitating whatever they feed you with. I've examined most of the theories of life out there. None of them understand the true nature of the human condition in its free state. You have one essence that is your soul. You must discover it, then develop a lifestyle where you're honoring that essence by releasing the inspired aesthetic energy it brings forth within you, every day, all the time. This simple way of living is the only real, natural, flowing way to ride the engine that is your life, and it is an engine in the sense that it's all about this one, global machine that is you, either operating as one unit doing well or doing not so well. It's got nothing to do with all those steps, strategies, and stages all those psychobablists and self-help phonies have been blasting at us for the past 40 years or so in all their useless books, all with X number of one-liners about how to empower yourself and live a great life. Not one gives you a systematic way to tap into your own sense of natural inspiration, beauty, and the fantasies in your subconscious mind, which is your soul in its pure state. They just give you those discrete one-liners which you forget about by the next morning when you wake up. Go to the self-help section of any bookstore and you'll see that all of them are offering X number of steps, stages, strategies, rules, tips, etc. one-liners on how to live a better life, but none of them seem to get the truth that you are a global, unitary essence, and one-liners are meaningless in light of this because following them is artificial. They can't compete with who you are in your true nature. Discrete one-liners can't sustain a permanent sense of inspiration. Life as lived day by day needs a simple, intuitive, natural formula that's inherent to who you are in your soul. This law of life applies to animals too. At one time, I was insensitive enough to not take my dog for his daily run because I felt I had no time, but then I noticed that he got aggressive and temperamental when he didn't get a chance to release his natural, inspired energy like he's supposed to by nature. After that, I never disrespected him again. Now every day I give him plenty of opportunity to follow his true nature and blow off his natural steam. Happiness is that simple. Release your natural energy to a worthy level and you feel good. Don't release it and it sits inside of you unused, destroying you from within. Most of us were brought up to revere a certain religion, but they all got it wrong because they're trying to impose an artificial standard on you that's not consistent with your true nature. They all want you to aspire to the standard of goodness and loving your fellow man, which is impossible because we are all self-centered, territorial, and seek our own comfort and pleasure by nature. Through a process of maturation, I have learned on my own without religion that material greed or excess disrupts my natural sense of harmony. How can I engage in extreme frivolous activities when I'm perfectly aware that half of the world is starving? It's not good sense to be antagonistic to people because you alienate them from you. You get what you want much easier by being nice and cooperative rather than with an elitist, self-centered attitude. It also makes you feel better to be loving and live in harmony with others, at least your family and a few friends. It's wise to serve myself and within that lifestyle, find some way to serve my fellow man to keep me balanced without trying to live by this extreme, artificial religious standard that almost no one can match, which is why some people go totally carnal. They get so tired of being told what to do and how to think according to society's standards that they go to the opposite extreme in the pursuit of pleasure, hedonism, consumerism, material greed, and pop culture thrills to the extent that it leaves them empty, just like religion does, because they're not being whole individuals the way they naturally feel it. There is some condition being imposed on them that they choose to follow, either a religious code or society's code of what is cool, successful, exciting and pleasurable. Partying is only pleasurable for a season because deep inside, you have a sense of the noble person you want to be, someone who feels proud of themselves without having to go off and make the scene somewhere with some phony in crowd of lost souls looking at each other to reinforce their empty lives. It's called self-respect. People with a lot of it earn it every day by doing what they feel they must from their true natures. We're all selfish and self-centered with a desire to be loving, loved, kind, benevolent and helping all at the same time. This is the natural paradox and hypocrisy of the human condition. We want it all, we want it now for ourselves, and we want to be nice, kind, loving, and popular too. I never deny my self-centered nature because that's who I am, but at the same time, I have few needs, so I don't mind giving over my resources to help others in need because I don't need much for myself, nor am I a hoarder. I live to experience the essence that is me and release that energy fully in the moment. That's all I really care about. The only truly happy people in the world are people who get up every morning knowing they have to release a bunch of that natural potential energy that lives inside of them. Everybody else is living some kind of generic, uninspired life, either brainwashed by something or too weak to strive to become the person they really want to be. The major source of discontentment in our society comes from trying to conform to the standards of the world rather than living by our own standards and constantly releasing our natural energy. Not too many people are consciously aware that they got brainwashed by something out in the world, so as a result, they don't follow their true natures and now wonder why, if they're so successful and trendy according to societal standards, they still feel empty inside. My evolution from system clone to enlightened free spirit has made me feel free, brainwashed by nothing, trying to keep my distance from all the indoctrinating forces around me. My life is mine. My thoughts are superior to all the pop culture entertainment, psychobabble, mainstream news, politicians, religious leaders, New Age gurus and all the formal academic system social sciences knowledge in the world. That's where I choose to live, in my own thoughts, as purely as possible for the experience of the moment, which is where every enlightened person should live, knowing that nothing out in the world can compete with who they are, what they think and who they want to be. Nothing should interfere with you living true to yourself, but the truth is that most of us are polluted by something. You can use all that stuff out there as the circus of life for your entertainment and minor amusement, but never let it take you away from the person you want to be. Follow the flow. There is beauty everywhere. I walk in beauty. Navajo prayer. The soul learns at last that it is self-delighting, self-appeasing, self-affrighting, and that its own sweet will is heaven's will. W.M. Butler Yeats. A soul doesn't learn anything. It just discovers what it is. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. Dr. Albert Schweitzer. Consider today's society, it gratifies and satisfies every need, except for one, the need for meaning. Viktor Frankl, The Unheard Cry for Meaning. On a generic, mass level, society has made us a bunch of neurotic, lonely people feeling like we're missing out on something if we're not in an ideal loving relationship, so we spend much of our lives looking for the perfect love that will miraculously fulfill us based on idealistic love stories we hear in the media, which most of us try desperately to find in real life, often destroying ourselves in the process. In my opinion, less than 3% of the population will get the glorious love affair they desire in their lives. Even if you do find great love, you'll still find that you wake up every morning alone in your head to face the day, to either inspire yourself through a flow of tough worthy effort complemented with a relaxing, sensuous lifestyle, or live a dull life in average, cruise comfort mode. You can only get so close to other human souls, and the rest is you alone, like the 13th century Sufi, Islamic sect, poet mystic Jalaluddin Rumi, 1207–1273, said. There is a passion in me that doesn't long for anything from another human being. All my talk was madness, filled with dos and don'ts. For ages I knocked on a door. When it opened, I found that I was knocking from the inside. Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. In Self-Reliance, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing can bring you peace but yourself." Henrik Ibsen, the 19th century Norwegian writer, said, "The strongest man in the world is he who stands most alone without getting neurotic if he's not in some perfect lovey-dovey romance with a picture-perfect family that rarely exists in the real world anyway." Focus on your life, get the emotional connections you need with other people, but don't rely on them too much for your happiness, because no matter what, you stand alone in your life. If you live inspired, true to your soul, you'll have a better chance of connecting with that soulmate equal, because you'll be a prize and the worthy candidates of the opposite sex, same sex if you're gay, will know it when they see you and want to connect with you more so than if you were just some average desperado with an average job desperate to find somebody to change your life, as the old Moody Blues song says, because you feel so lonely inside. Only when you're happy with yourself by living the life that you feel is right for you and got some disposable cash in the bank can you find a true mate to share your happiness with. Society wants three things out of you: to become a responsible worker by holding down a good job and doing it well. Become a consumer by plugging into pop culture values such that you're always buying things to try to look cool, trendy, modern and fashionable. Be cool and feel cool, cool as defined by the system. Get married and have kids so that you'll be a good consuming citizen stuck in the work-eat-spend cycle of the traditional American dream. All these things are well and good, but what if somebody suddenly were to give you $10 million? It would make you financially secure and comfortable, which would relieve the burden of financial stress, but as far as the spiritual, intimate, carnal, transcendent highs of life go, all the money in the world can't give them to you. It's something you have to create from within yourself all the time. It's how much spark do you have for your life at any moment in time. Some people, like extreme artists, have to live in their free space unhassled by anything all the time. I'm not quite this intense. I need social distractions with mindless pursuits in the real world. That's what a free spirit is that distinguishes him from your typical artist. The artist focuses on being a master at one thing greatly. The free spirit believes in giving great effort when he feels like it, but to have the temperance and diversity to exercise a variety of the options life has to offer, to not be bound by anything at all as some artists are, living out the stereotype of the brooding, intense master only concerned with finding perfection and transcendence through their limited base of work. I've gotten away from perfectionist thinking a long time ago. Worthy effort to about 90% intensity is good enough for me. There is no destination point to shoot for where you think you'll be happy, because you have to create happiness all the time by a mixture of releasing all those energies within you that make you feel good. Life goes on and on day after day until you die. Even if you reach a feeling of perfection for a minute or so, the next day you'll wake up feeling groggy and tired, and you'll have to expend some energy to feel good on that day, or something will happen that will cause stress in your life so you'll lose the perfect feeling, then have to work to try to get it back. I have great days all the time, but the next morning when I wake up, I feel like a dud for at least an hour until I pump some iron, run around or do something like that. You can have 10 sexual orgasms today and feel great, which is good, but tomorrow, you have to keep doing it because all great feelings are transient. You have to keep creating them over and over again. It never ends unless you die a spiritual death and give in to mundanity. If you do anything that distracts from your soul or doesn't work on your soulful pursuits, you'll eventually lose a hold of yourself and feel miserable, out of touch with who you really are. The only thing that matters is the extent to which you can keep this flow going within yourself or lose it and have the ability to get it back again. You either have this spark of life within you or you're spiritually dead, but it's not an all or nothing thing. Most of us have a percentage of our fullest possible vitality as discussed in the soul scale. The important thing to win the game of life for a pure free spirit is to never stray too far from this essence poetically known as your soul. It's just a constant movement of life, ultimately believing only in what I generate in my head, treating all the rest as my circus of entertainment in an otherwise much maligned world. You recharge when you rest. You can't go full blast living for inspiration and hedonism all the time like a manic artist with so much energy he can't stop until he crashes. You can come pretty close when you're young, but as you get older, I've found that I had to balance my time, pace myself so to speak, live to release my inspiration in a healthy, temperate way, enjoy the pleasures of life and rest simply because I have to. For one, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and secondly, you need rest simply because you can't take the punishing pace that living an inspired life takes out of you, even if you love what you do. You have to get off the merry-go-round to pursue distractions, do nothing much to recharge your batteries and save yourself for the long run. George Bernard Shaw said, "A life spent in making mistakes is not only more honorable but more useful than a life spent in doing nothing," which to me means action regardless of what type it is. Originality is a free individual being as pure and primal in thought as some aborigine looking up at the sky 10,000 years ago wondering what it was all about for him, so the mantra is constant original action over a lifetime. True self-respect is the hardest thing to earn. Fake self-respect is easy. Get a makeover, a new car, a dull job somewhere, some trendy clothes, and all of a sudden, you feel like the cock of the walk. But an enlightened person wouldn't feel any different because he knows all this stuff is just outer dressing. It has nothing to do with who you really are in your soul, which will stand the test of time for the rest of your life regardless of what happens to you in the outside world, both the greatest victories and the most devastating defeats. Accept the world for what it is in all its glory and ugliness. Know that it will never fully appreciate whatever you might do to help it. People will routinely take your help, then show no gratitude or acknowledgement, but be nice to them anyway regardless of your true motives, which you'll find are often self-serving. But that's cool, it's the way of the world, the way of human nature. Just be in there using up your talents to do something good for someone so you can get your cash out of the deal. To live the life you want. Chapter 4. Inspiration 4. Free Spirit Mantra. I am who I am. I live for inspiration, beauty, aesthetics, pleasure and love, love of self, love of life, love of animals, love of spirit, love of romance, and love of people I can relate to. Free Spirit Mantra. Nowadays, there are very few true originals left. Even the young, rebellious people who think they're being cool individuals are imitating a definition of individuality and rebellion they got from the media, mostly MTV and TV commercials, what with all their earrings, the Nike logos, and those rap gestures. These are all corporate-inspired images of coolness and rebellion. A guy wears an earring because he thinks it makes him look rad and cool, but he doesn't realize he's a brainwashed fool suckered into playing the system's game of manipulating him into following it without even realizing it. It's all brainwashed crap. Where's the one or two in the bunch strong enough to be themselves the way they feel it without being brainwashed? Will the world go the way of Big Brother as everybody gets indoctrinated in a seductive way, without even realizing it, by the establishment marketing gurus? It's not about setting goals, which is the linchpin of the entire conventional self-help movement. It's about knowing how to stay inspired about your life and enjoying it day by day. You do that by following your essence within. You are a loner stuck in your head like everyone else with your own needs, desires, and agenda, but society comes in on two major levels to try to make you a homogeneous conformist. Level 1 is the global, mainstream media, political capitalist religious agenda thrust on us all the time in a big way by the societies we live in. There's a kind of peer pressure implicit in this. If you don't conform or fit in, you are made to look and feel like an oddball or a less than desirable person. Level 2 is more local in scope. Wherever you go anywhere on the planet, people generally do not like people who are too individualistic and do their own things for any of the following reasons. They are jealous. They feel threatened. They have big egos and don't like to feel upstaged by others. They want to control free-thinking people. They don't like to see people who seem to be enjoying their lives more than they are. They don't understand that there are people out there who don't care about the things they've been indoctrinated to believe in, like the mainstream news, pop culture entertainment, the standard work ethic, capitalist values, religion, patriotism, etc. They don't like people who don't subscribe to the same beliefs and conventions they do. They don't like people who can't be labeled and put into a neat, little box. They think that you think you're superior to them when, in fact, you're just living your life naturally, as opposed to them who are too weak, stupid, narrow-minded, and uninspired to do this, so they'll try to knock you down a peg or two in an attempt to get you to live at their mundane levels of consciousness. Anytime there is a group of 3 or more people anywhere on the planet and one is obviously more an individual than the others with his or her own ideas, the others will always talk about this person behind their back and unite to try to put him or her down, to make them feel like a freak for not conforming to their mainstream, dull, capitalist, uninspired way of life. I can almost guarantee this. I've seen it happen with all kinds of different demographic groups of people within society. If you're too much of an individual and are a member of a family or a group, expect criticism and ostracism. It's the way the small minds of the world operate. They are jealous of you or feel threatened, so they will try to assert control by trying to make you feel inferior and deviant. Some people don't like to see original free thinkers trying to live inspired, sensual, aesthetic, hedonistic lives for themselves. It makes them feel jealous and inferior, so because they're not enlightened nor have the spiritual essence to live these kinds of lives, they act on primitive instinct, try to belittle, control or destroy the people who are living like this. Life should be a circle. Everybody gets influenced by the world when they're young, stupid, insecure, and naive, which is normal because we're not strong enough to know and trust ourselves yet. Enlightened people will complete the circle by eventually getting strong enough to go back to the essence from whence they came, which is them the way they were born. They will choose to live by the divine blueprint in their soul that their God gave them at conception, which they intuitively feel is good and right, as opposed to following the path the system has set up for all good conformist clones. For most people, the circle of life will be broken. They will disrupt the natural harmony within themselves by following one illusion or another from the world system, and because it's not the real them in the nature they were born with, they will be lost souls floating in space, always with a gnawing sense of emptiness deep down inside, because they sense, on some level, that they're dishonoring themselves by not following their true pure essences as human beings. We weren't born to be corporate clones, to think in terms of dollars and cents and sales figures, nor were we born to live on a rigid, 5-day work week schedule, yet most of us do without questioning it. We think this is our natural state of affairs, but it's not. Most people don't start out enlightened, knowing their true essences as human beings and honoring it as the course of their life. They take on the values of the outside world. I accept this because I was a brainwashed clone up to my mid-20s, when I finally realized I had to choose between career clone or free bohemian. You have to earn a living out in the world, but the moment you become enlightened is the moment you realize that what's out there is a layer of artificial values imposed upon you. If you can peel it off through a process of self-contemplation and experience out in the world to discover who you really are and live by it, you win the game of life. I have summed up the gist of the free spirit ideology in the following few paragraphs. You either understand it and live by it, or you live an artificial life which causes some kind of disharmony within yourself. The more you live by your true essence as a human being and constantly release this natural, inspired, loving and hedonistic energy you feel inside to an intense level to the best of your ability, the freer and happier you'll be, which translates into a feeling of transcendence above the general mundanity of the human condition, which is bland normal consciousness, not necessarily feeling any pain but not experiencing any great euphoric highs of being fully engaged with the spirit of life either. The less you live by your true essence as a human being, either by buying into the agenda of the world out there and trying to achieve what they call success, or living a couch potato, lazy type of lifestyle, the more your natural, inherent, primal, and divinely inspired energy sits inside of you unused, which is the cause of most of human misery, apart from the misery of feeling lonely or feeling like you're not a success out in the world. But these are artifacts of cultural brainwash, so it all comes down to identity, how true you are to the mug in the mirror. The further away you are from your true self by not releasing your natural energy, the more empty you will feel. Most people live in a state of generic mundanity most of the time. Generic mundanity is probably what you're feeling right now as you read this book. You're not feeling any pain, you're feeling comfortable and cozy, but it's not a high, euphoric feeling that you only know when you purge a lot of natural energy intensely, then coast on this inner feeling of satisfaction and bliss for a while. At the end of the day, I've finished with my more intense physical and creative pursuits, but I still feel like I'm riding the high I got from releasing all that energy. You can't get this feeling by sitting in one spot or not doing anything that doesn't tax you heavily in the aesthetic, spiritual, inspired, physical or creative sense. You can't elevate your state of being for hours at a time any other way than by releasing a bunch of inspired aesthetic energy that makes you feel like you just took your body and soul for a great ride of human experience. To me, it's a number of activities I do almost every day to help keep me fired up and feeling good. I start by doing tough, challenging and worthy activities to release my energy that comes from my inspiration to try to live a great life. This routine is personal to me. It's my own code and my own agenda. I'm sure that if you were really tough, true, strong, and committed to finding yourself and living a great life, you would find the pulse in your own soul, then pursue it every day to honor the highest aspects of your true identity. Every day, I'm trying to match an inner standard inside of me that releases a lot of endorphins and inspires me mightily to send me into a zone above the generic mundanity of the human condition in general. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, what kind of work you do or business you run, how many people you're surrounded by or think love and adore you, every human being lives alone in their heads. At least 90% of everyone's waking time is spent alone in their heads, regardless of whether they're with anyone or alone. Regardless of whether you love your job or your business, there is no perfect job or business out there where you own your own time and do exactly as you please. At least 30% of every job or business involves tedium, doing dry, boring things that you have to do as part of it. The purpose of life for a guy like me is to own my own time completely without answering to any responsibilities out in the so-called real world beyond providing myself with a basic roof over my head, paying my bills and living to stay in a state of consciousness above the general mundanity of the human condition as much as I can, because I love my life so much I want to be true to it and live by my own code, away from all that crap that just about everybody I know or meet anywhere has been brainwashed by, at least to some extent. I have no illusions like most people do that have been brainwashed by capitalism, status, success, religion, patriotism, pop culture, entertainment, and the image of being perceived as cool by others. Most people don't realize that none of these things can sustain a long-term sense of well-being within themselves. They can't touch the pursuit of inspiration, sensual bliss, aesthetic beauty, personal purity, love, and affection as the keys to a great life. The game for a guy like me is when I wake up in the morning, I know immediately that I have to do something tough, challenging and worthy from my store of inspired activities in order to honor the standard of my archetypal identity that comes deep from within the pit of my soul. This releases my natural energy and in the process elevates my mood to free me from the general mundanity of the human condition, at least for a little while. If I didn't do this every day, over time, I would lose a hold of my identity, the way I see myself and the person I want to be. It would put me on the same level as the mass of generic people out there who don't know that they have inner standards to honor nor do anything about them. If you don't honor your inner essence as a human being by releasing your natural, potential, inspired energy doing tough, challenging, worthy things, you will lose the connection with your true nature, soul, over time, which is why most people do not live vital lives releasing all their inspired aesthetic energy to get some highs out of them. Physiologically, purging the natural energy out of yourself causes the release of endorphins, but psychologically, spiritually, and aesthetically, it makes me feel like I metaphorically hit a grand slam or at least a home run in my pursuit of a great lifestyle, at least for today, right now, in the moment. I would put it on the same level as sex, drugs, sensual aesthetic activities, and love as the few things in life that get me high and euphoric, giving me life orgasms. Everything else besides these few things are minor amusements or distractions to me. I'm not against capitalism. I like my cheap technical gadgets. I'm not totally against pop culture entertainment. I think 95% is crap but 5% is entertaining. I like to watch mindless TV shows sometimes and listen to good music, but I'm against material excess and the lie that more things beyond the basics will make you happier, and against the deification of pop culture entertainment as the cutting edge of what's cool in life, because next to the actual experiences of life in what I try to do day by day to be inspired, sensual, aesthetic, euphoric and affectionate, it's just some low-level amusement, but most people give it much more attention and value than it deserves. I don't get it. We have doctors, teachers, engineers, scientists, inventors, visionaries, intellectuals, adventurers, and true artists who work very hard selflessly for the good of society, but they parade these manufactured pop culture flakes, including professional athletes, at us as the supposed important, special, elite people doing the important stuff that we should pay attention to when they're just arrogant tits doing nothing much for the good of humanity as far as I'm concerned. But this is the game that's being played out there, and the masses of generic people eat it up trying to imitate it. What's out there can't compete to the experience that this is your life alone to either live to thrive in as your unique adventure or be swept up by indoctrination from out there, which will leave you listening to all those low-level generic people who will try to convince you that watching football is the manly thing to do, or that coloring your hair will make you look cool and glamorous, which is all, of course, a bunch of bull. Yet how many stupid men watch football not because they love it but because they have been brainwashed to think it's what masculine men do, and how many women color their hair thinking it makes them look glamorous, not realizing it makes them look like stupid, weak, brainwashed trailer trash who let themselves get taken in by cheap, tacky advertising. And don't be fooled by the hippy-dippy, left-wing, activist, counterculture movement either. They're a bunch of lost souls just like the capitalists are, looking to grasp at some ideological utopian straw out there somewhere that doesn't exist. Inner dignity. Why is it that there are many wealthy people or people with status in the community who don't exude an aura of inner dignity when you see them straight on face to face, like the politicians and the business tycoons, many of whom look like half-dead system clones to me? And then when you turn around and go to the place for rejects in society, the prisons, you always come across one or two with this sense of high self-respect or dignity within themselves. We seem to measure an individual's worth by his wealth and status in the community, but there is a worth deeper than that, the inner dignity an individual has within themselves, a sense that they are doing the right things with their lives, honoring the inner standards within themselves. When you're alone, all by yourself in your head, as we all are at least 23 hours out of any day, your wealth or status out in the world mean nothing. All you have is you, either with a sense of inner dignity or without it. From my observations, this is the most valuable way an individual can aspire to live, for the inner sense of dignity within his or her soul. Wealth and status out in the world are fine, but they should be byproducts of living by this dignity within, not the other way around, striving to achieve wealth and status for their own sake without culturing the inner sense of dignity you should feel about yourself. Life is a fantasy in your mind. The game of life is to keep staying inspired no matter what. Life is a fantasy in your mind. In Eugene O'Neill's play The Iceman Cometh, the setting is the local bar where O'Neill goes through a dozen characters, each with some illusion, pipe dream, or delusion about their lives, covering all areas like wealth, status, politics, glamour, picture-perfect family, romance, delusions of grandeur, business success, religion, status, etc. The character used to help strip everybody down of their illusions is Theodore Hickey, the fast-talking salesman who comes in and confronts everybody about their pipe dreams and delusions. But the irony is that he's a madman who killed his wife, convinced that he did it because he loved her but really hated her. So the redemption at the end was that he's a madman, therefore everything he says is null and void. This means they can all go back to their individual dreams and fantasies, so there is a collective sigh of relief as everything goes back to normal. The point is that we all need illusions to go on and survive. This is my take on life, kinda like some quote I read by Sir Francis Bacon that goes something like, "Everybody lives in a world of their own creation known to none but them." This is why I think I'm free. I know that my life is a fantasy in my mind, just like everybody else's lives are a fantasy in their minds, so I have no inhibitions about who I am and express it freely, at least to myself, and I'm not swayed by all the facades people put on, because I know that underneath, everyone has some deficiency or some dream about their lives that they're thinking about. But this is cool. This is who we are. This is the human condition. Eugene O'Neill exposed it for his generation. I'm re-exposing it for our generation. We're all walking around with our facades, but underneath them we're all living in our individual fantasy worlds. This is why people don't intimidate me. I don't care what status or alleged position of power you have out in the world. I know that underneath, if you're a man, you're first of all living in the same carnal, lusty state of mind I'm living in, and secondly, there's a fantasy world in your mind away from everything you're about in the so-called real world with other people, a utopia, a private paradise. Chances are it will never come to pass because of lots of reasons. You can't bend people to your will, it will probably cost lots of money, and it's just plain hard work to try to live an idealistic life where everything is perfect. I always used to feel like a strong, vital guy. I still do in a limited way, but I lose 1% of testosterone a year, which means I'll never go back to the glory days of youth, but I still have the fantasy and the vision of me as a strong, young guy, and I pursue it in my aging body. The point is that I got the fantasy and the image, and I pursue it in real life to some extent. This is what Eugene Onal's point was. We all need a vision of fantasy, paradise, or a better life to sustain our souls, because if we lose this and accept reality for what it is, many of us may get depressed because of the circumstances we see ourselves in. You have to create your life every day. Part of it is creating a fantasy. Part of it is releasing the natural energy in your soul with inspired action to feel like you're in motion with your life to this imaginary utopia in your mind, and that's the way it goes. You create this feeling of possibility within yourself every day, and that's as good as it can get, because there is no fixed place you get to in life where all is perfect. I can live in perfect surroundings such as a nice house with a soulmate or several, but every single morning when I wake up I know that if I don't go off and release a bunch of physical energy right off the bat, I will feel as though I'm wasting the day and betraying myself, so I have to create this every day and intersperse it with the fantasies in my mind. That's about as good as it gets. There's no place over the rainbow where everything will be perfect every day simply because people disagree, get into fights. Most people think they need more money and stuff, and everybody's body breaks down sooner or later. If you can make your fantasies come to pass in a real way to a limited extent, you're ahead of the game. But if you can keep cool regardless of what happens outside of yourself and keep that fantasy in your head romantic and inspired no matter what, then you'll get through with your youthful spark intact. Everybody loses their youthful spark of inspiration at some point in life. The trick is to keep getting it back. Most people keep the fires of youth flickering throughout their 20s, but by 30, complacency rears its ugly head, and by 35 just about everybody is in a rut, slowly losing themselves until their shells of whatever youthful vigor they once had, with an expanding midriff, receding hairline, a wrinkling face, and a bad attitude that their best days have passed them by. Most people accept this state of affairs as life as lived. This becomes a perpetual state of generic blandness. I watched an acquaintance of mine go from inspired, young guy to Olympic champion to paunchy 39-year-old guy who looks like any other slightly used up, overweight, middle-aged guy with a fat face. This was about 10 years ago, so I'm sure he's worse off now. He didn't keep his spark. So what that he won a hunk of metal on some day in his distant past? All that matters is right now. It doesn't matter that the former alpha male lion was once the greatest stud around. Now that he's crippled and old, everybody's snapping at him, trying to kill him, the other males, baboons, dogs, the bugs and the vultures, but worst of all, he's laying down, waiting to die, no fight left in him anymore. You must be ever vigilant as to yourself, otherwise you die a spiritual death at a very young age, then mundanity and physical deterioration follow soon after. A friend of mine started a cell phone business, is now wealthy, yet all he does is work, open 7 days a week with 3 kids. He can't stop to enjoy his life because he feels an obsessive need to control his invention, the business. Truly enlightened people create something, then move on to the next project, getting the most out of their whims and inspiration. Free spirits keep the fires of their souls burning brightly in their efforts to keep their souls pure, strong, young, enlightened, happy and inspired all the time. I heard a quote once on that Idea City Seminars thing on City TV. The guy said, we spend all of our lives working our butts off trying to make things easier for ourselves, but we fail to realize that it's inspired exertion that gives us our great highs in life, doing what we love to do as opposed to lounging on a beach somewhere, which would kill most people like me because it's so dull. Loners stuck inside our heads. Everybody should tend to their own affairs because that's where you are all the time anyway, regardless of what delusion you live under about being a part of some cool, elite, popular in crowd within society, because you're not. Nobody is. There is no such thing as an in-crowd anywhere regardless of how much people fake it about being tied into a community of like-minded souls. We're just too selfish, self-centered, jealous, and insecure to be like this. Human society is a bunch of loners, each living in a solitary delusion in their own heads. Some are comfortable in their own skin. Others are insecure people looking for something to hang onto to give them some reassurance that they are connected to others, but they're really not, because everybody has a different agenda, and human nature, except for a few saints, is to be self-centered. It doesn't matter how much money you have beyond a basic level of comfort, or how much you think other people admire you and think you're fabulous, because they're all off thinking about themselves, not thinking about you, which is why the vain attempt to get attention from others is meaningless to a guy like me, even though I see ego as a driving force in many people's lives, to try to get attention from others, to be recognized somehow as a cool, special, elite, superior person. If you knew how little time most people spent thinking about others because they're thinking about themselves, and the ones that spend time thinking about others, such as the so-called fans, reading the tabloids or watching celebrity news TV, are losers anyway, so their admiration or attention to someone has no real honor to it, then you would let go of this notion of trying to get status out in society or trying to be popular and famous, because people in general are much too self-centered to spend much time thinking about others unless it will benefit them somehow. Even people who love each other passionately can't monitor the inner states and well-being of each other minute by minute, day by day, and they don't because they got their own lives to concern themselves with. Enlightenment is to see the world as it is, a bunch of fallible loners with public faces trying to act like they're connected to some illusory in-crowd somewhere, when every last one of us knows, in the privacy of our minds, that we're a loner, self-centered to boot, and we wouldn't want to share our innermost thoughts with anyone else anyway, because there's a lot of carnal, evil, vile, ugly stuff in there, but we never let it show, which is good in order to be functional in society. The fact remains, regardless of who you are, what you do, how many hearts you touch, how many people you love and love you, every Tuesday afternoon, Saturday morning, and some enchanted evening, it will still be you alone, living out your consciousness by yourself, unknown to anyone but you. The reason I'm saying all this is to tell you to get over the pretense of the grass is greener syndrome or some illusory in-crowd somewhere. We're all at the same level, a bunch of loners stuck inside our heads despite the outer appearances we put forth. Some of us manage to live inspired, happy lives. Most of us live generic, mundane lives, even though we live under delusions that we're living glorious lives. There are generally two versions of what constitutes a glorious life. 1. The pop culture, glamorous lifestyle of working hard in the traditional American dream sense to achieve what they call the champagne wishes and caviar dreams of material success and status, constantly bombarded at us through the media. 2. The Nietzschean version, which is to do tough, challenging things for your own intrinsic interests, to reach your limits and have a blast in the process while you're doing them, to explore your version of the entire spectrum of the human experience in a freewheeling, bohemian way, feeling what you want that you feel is good for you. You got most of the people who are following the system's rules and protocols of success and fun, and then you got the free people saying screw that shit, it seems kinda lame to me, I'm gonna go my own way. We're all just making time. In 50 years, this current decade will be relegated to an occasional one-hour show on History TV. In 100 years, it'll be a one-hour TV show about the century. That's how much we will matter on the landscape of the entire human civilization, which is why I live my life as I do and why I wrote this book, to try to open some eyes about the great many delusions many of us live under as to what's real and what's a bunch of manufactured pretense. Many people are searching for the key to a good life, especially young people. Most people over 40 are set in their ways as boring duds. The youth are looking for an answer on how to live a great life, but many will never get past the system's version of life to live their own, which even includes a sanctioned phase of pop culture rebellion during the teenage years to about 25, then it's over. If you're not on track towards becoming a productive citizen interested in marriage, family, and mortgage by then, people will criticize you, sneer at you, and call you a loser misfit. My original thought is to listen to myself away from the system and live by what I feel within regardless of the outside world except for my need to earn a basic living. I have found a certain sanctity in my soul that I live by away from all the brainwashing forces of the world. This stuff is all meaningless because it's not the real you in your naked essence. Anybody can be promoted to big cheese at Factory X or drive a big car if they work hard enough. So what? What does this have to do with an individual trying to live a transcendent life? If you can step away from these things and see yourself as the naked soul you really are, that will be a first step towards enlightenment. Look at people. The body and face don't lie. They reveal a person's true biography away from position in the world. You don't sense vitality and happiness exuding through the pores of most people. The permanent imprint in their faces do not look happy, nor do the bodies look robust and hardy. The lifestyle the system offers is a put-on. People within the system are shielded by their armor of status and material wealth within the world, but behind it, they live alone in their heads just like you, and unless they figure out that the game is to stay inspired day by day by releasing their natural potential energy and primal lusts constantly all the time, they will just be another lost soul, living a generic lifestyle in a normal state of consciousness, which is not a particularly great, glorious way to live. Now that I understand my ride of the human condition, I have made the connection between me and the inner standard I was born with, so my life has been simplified into living by it, and that's it. Very little else interests me. I do other things for the occasional diversion when I need a break, but after enlightenment, which is the discovery of your true essence, life becomes very basic. My approach to the way to live life is not religious, capitalistic, nor does it conform to New Ageism or conventional self-help psychobabble. It's to live by your own inner standard day by day and accept that as your divine mission from whatever created you without the need to prove anything to the world. Beyond earning a living for yourself, it's your ride of time. The truth is that nobody can ever experience what you think or feel, and nobody really cares all that much, firstly because they physically can't feel what you feel, and secondly, they're stuck in their own heads, focused on themselves like you're focused on yourself. So get over the ego crap of trying to fill other people's heads up with thoughts of you, realize it's your ride by yourself in your head and try to take it for a hell of a good ride, doing what you feel is good and right from within yourself. An enlightened person lives it his or her way to the best of their ability within their means. I've examined virtually all the psychobabble out there, both the pop culture stuff in bookstores and the formal academic field they call psychology. I got my own mind. Something or somebody gave it to me to use as I see fit. I'm fully self-contained within it. I may use some wisdom from the outside world if I think it's good and will help me, but other than that, I have no gods or no masters. For my life, nothing out there is superior to my own thoughts, decisions, and actions. I have taken the journey out into the world both in the physical, geographic sense of going to a lot of different places and meeting a lot of different people, and I have taken the journey of ideas the world offers anyone who cares to look, but through it all, I always had a vague sense that it was all a bit of bull. I didn't understand myself nor was really happy until I confronted myself as a naked soul away from the world, realized who I was, what that meant in day-to-day living, and then honor that essence day by day for the rest of my life. Everybody has an inherent standard they were born with, but most of us do not realize we have this standard that lives in our souls because we've been handily brainwashed by the world, so well in most cases, that we don't realize this and think we're living free lives when we're really not. This inner standard could be divine, given to us by a creator God, or it could be natural, a fact of biology. The fact is that we each have independent gifts, talents, tendencies, and desires that we were born with. Nobody knows for sure where the imprint on our souls comes from, but it's there, and you can break the world population down into two categories. 1. Those who know this is so and consciously make an effort to live by it. 2. Everybody else who more or less go along with the indoctrinating forces of the system without feeling this strong sense of identity within themselves. For many people that feel inner yearnings, it's usually a temporary, idealistic phase of youth that's quickly buried away when they're brainwashed by the system and aspire to become good, ambitious, achievement-oriented, successful citizen clones as defined by Big Brother. Your true nature is the natural interests, tendencies, drives and potentials you were born with to do things simply because you love the process of doing them, because they give you a sense of dignity, inner power, inner peace, identity, joy, strength, self-respect and the euphoric thrill of being alive, an inner sensibility you can't buy or get much by following the formula of how to live a successful life according to the world system, which is basically to get a few capitalist goals in the traditional sense of the American dream and work your butt off like a robot, person in one-dimensional mode, step by step following the rules to try to achieve capitalist success, which includes the package deal. The package deal is to be a winner at work or in business, get married, have kids, try to be recognized as a respectable citizen within the community, buy a house in the nice part of town, buy a big car and a bunch of material goods to puff yourself up that you're a cool, happening, successful person who has arrived on the hill of Americana dreamland. This formulaic lifestyle is fine for most people because they have no strong needs to live a free, exploratory life, or they simply go with the path of least resistance, which is to get a normal job and follow the system's formula, but I don't feel any of it. I respect the people who give me root canals, serve me food at restaurants, read the news on TV and patrol the streets looking for bad guys, but I don't particularly want to live in that system. Mass media reality / package deal of life. I was born pure and whole with the ability to figure my life out on my own without getting polluted by all this agenda out there that's presented as the mainstream formal education system of our society. I didn't sign up for it. I don't want to be part of it. I think it's mostly a bunch of crap. Sure, they teach you the 3 R's in school, but along with it, they're trying to destroy your individual, original spark and turn you into a functional, punctual worker clone who buys into the lie that consumerism, the mainstream news and pop culture entertainment will make you happy, but these things are brainwashing tools geared to pacify you and kill your individuality. I don't even think that most of the counterculture people they market at us as the cool, anti-establishment, good guys and gals are sincere in what they're doing. They present the so-called mainstream view and the alternative view, but the thing is that both sides are manufactured by the system. It's all within this little box of life that they've created. The mass media is designing this reality we're all supposed to buy into as the standard of the way life should be lived. We're supposed to define ourselves within this environment. We're supposed to pick where we stand in the left-wing / right-wing spectrum so that we can think that we freely choose our politics, but we don't. We're playing the game of life created by others. We're not free or pure enough to create and play our own games away from all this stuff. To me, most of the so-called cool, counterculture people are a bunch of actors on the stage of the world system, trying to get their piece of money, fame, status, recognition, or whatever they're looking for that's missing from their lives. Most of those phony liberals you see on TV playing the role of bleeding heart, caring left-wingers go back to their big, comfortable homes at night while there are homeless, hungry people a few miles from where they live. The left-wingers are no different than the right-wing hypocrites. If these people were sincere, they'd be out there doing something hands-on, rather than going on TV flapping their gums about one piece of bullshit or another. When indoctrination gets so pervasive that it invades almost everybody you're surrounded by, it's not only the mass media that's indoctrinating you. The brainwashed people all around you are reinforcing their brainwashed lives through a concept that George Orwell, the writer of the novel 1984, called groupthink, a form of peer pressure where almost everybody is focused on one mindset that's supposed to be the cool, happening, mainstream way to be, and if you're not on this wavelength, they try to brand you as weird or deviant in an effort to try to make you conform to this grand illusion of the way life should be lived, which is to buy into the consumer capitalist, traditional work ethic lifestyle. People conforming to the package deal of life in general don't like anybody's attempt to be an individual because that person represents something they don't have the guts to be, themselves purely and simply. They try to subtly and directly make you conform so that they will feel less threatened by you and more secure in the delusion that their lives aren't as dull, one-dimensional, generic, and uninspired as they really are by living as timid, brainwashed consumer working clones in this capitalist corporate world they've sold their souls to, often without even realizing it. The modern world has massively polluted most of us by divorcing us from our true souls and natures. Instead of thinking original thoughts and pursuing our lives as we feel them, we are on the treadmill of capitalist success, either working some dull job, running some dull business, on our cell phones, the internet, Blackberries, etc., or plugged into some form of pop culture entertainment, consumer ideology, religious/new age delusion or psychobabble. All this takes away from thinking your own thoughts and doing your own thing as you naturally feel it. Enlightenment is to realize that there's nothing out in the world superior to me and the pure essence of who I am. I create euphoric, transcendent feelings within myself and live in that mindset. I refuse to be polluted by all that crap out there. I have the ability to separate myself from everything I was ever indoctrinated by to look at the pure individual I am away from the system. This has led me to know exactly who I am and who I want to be. My only purpose in life is to honor the person my Creator created me with the potential to be. Beyond that, I don't owe anybody anything or don't want to be anything else other than who I really am the way I was born. My life is about the inherent standard that lives inside of me away from everything I was raised to believe in. I focus on that. I don't allow myself to get polluted by all the stuff out there like a lot of people do even though almost no one will ever admit to it. Everybody likes to think they're free regardless of how brainwashed they are. I've seen 60-year-old men lamenting the fact that they never got a college degree. What does that have to do with anything? Somebody is that brainwashed that they let the system define their standard of happiness for them and feel bad because they didn't get a piece of paper that acknowledges them as a good clone. All I am is this pure essence that is me. It never changes. Enlightened people eventually come to the realization that the person they were as far back as they can remember is the very same person they are now and the same person they'll be on their deathbed. When you get enlightened, you realize you were endowed with a certain essence that is your soul. The only path in life that matters is to find out what it is, then live by it for the rest of your life. The problem with this is that not too many people realize that this is the purpose of life and not too many have the inspiration or fortitude to stick with it over a lifetime, so what happens is that they get out of harmony with themselves because they're not following their true nature. They are following one or more illusions from the world. The further away a person gets from living by their pure essence, the more empty and miserable they feel. This is why our Western societies are the lands of walking zombies, caricatures of modern coolness and success on the outside, spiritually dead people on the inside, out of touch with who they really are in their souls. People may not realize it on the surface because they are covering themselves over with some imposter from the world or some addiction that keeps them distracted, but somewhere, somehow, sometime, deep inside the soul, they will sense that they are dishonoring themselves. This dishonoring of one's true essence manifests itself within their entire being. You can often tell when somebody is out of harmony with themselves just by looking at them. They don't look happy, healthy, vital, or inspired. They don't have that look of somebody with a spring in their step or a sparkle in their eyes. This is the root cause of most of the misery and self-loathing in the prosperous Western world, where most people are not constantly struggling to get by. When people do not live by their true natures, they don't release their inherent natural energy every day, which is what you must do in order to constantly feel good and ride an eternal wave of inspiration. Almost nobody knows that this is the key to life, and almost nobody consciously does this. The further away you get from this, meaning the longer you go on not releasing the natural potential energy you were born with, the more it builds up inside of you and destroys you from within. Nobody has a crystal ball. Don't ever take anything for granted. Life is always at least 50% uncertainty. I've seen enough to know that fate will take its cut when you least expect it. If it takes its cut while you're living a boring life and planning for the future, you will lose twice. I've known several people who worked, saved, and scrimped for their dream home off in the woods somewhere only to die of a disease before they ever had a chance to spend one day in it. I saw a girl on TV who was living a great life but got stuck in a car one night with her boyfriend when he killed a cop, and she ended up doing 20 years for being an accessory, although she claimed she was innocent. Life is now, not your fantasy of what you will do when you're 65 at retirement with one foot in the grave by virtue of your age. I know a dental lab tech who spends every weekend working on his house. I tried to tell him that I was like that once before I realized my material surroundings didn't mean much as long as I had a basic roof over my head. I use my time for living as opposed to doing boring projects around the house. I saw a talk show where a woman was saying how her rich husband gave her a $40,000 a month allowance, then all of a sudden, he found someone else, divorced her, left her with the kids, and she had to go on welfare until she dug herself out of the pit. I knew a guy who was a commercial diver, diving one day doing a job when a boat ran him over and took a leg off, among other things. There was another case of some girls on a boat ride on July 4th when a big boat plowed them, killed them, and took off. Houses burn down. People get sick. People fall and hurt themselves, get hit by cars, shot, mugged, raped, conned, charmed, fed up with life, depressed, lose their jobs, etc. If you knew how many young people get cancer, diabetes, and heart attacks, you'd know how lucky you are. You might break your arm, get a divorce, get your car stolen, lose your wallet, your mother might get sick and need your help, etc. Some unexpected crap is always happening in life. How many people do you know who thought they were in love, then all of a sudden their lover leaves them? All you have is right now, today, the next 5 minutes, and that's it. If you plan too much, it will never go the way you want it to. Something always happens. You may even get seriously injured or die suddenly. I knew a girl, 32 years old, a bodybuilder, who died of breast cancer. Don't live for the future, live for now, that's all you ever got. People worry about their little problems. Get real. You ain't got a real problem until you've lost a leg to cancer and might die like Terry Fox did, but it didn't stop him from trying to run across Canada on one leg. Time waits for no one. The world keeps spinning round every day as it has for billions of years, and it don't care if you sit in your house all day and watch TV or get out and actually do something. In the end, you will be dead. The only thing that will have mattered is whether your life was worth living. If God is up there, He will judge for Himself. If not, at least you will have lived this life on this planet, your only shot, to the best of your ability. Will you be truly satisfied with a life well lived, or will you be a decrepit, miserable old person full of despair because you will feel cheated that life passed you by? Take action now. It's never too late. You may have ignored your inner soul for 30 years and become a creature of the world, living on the treadmill of work, food, and TV, but sooner or later, you should confront yourself and realize who you truly are as a human being. Chapter 5. Inspiration 5. One fixed essence. To live free and enlightened, you must lose your fear of being wrong. Only those who attempt the absurd and impossible ever achieve these types of things. There are no eternal truths that change you qualitatively after you're enlightened, because enlightened people know they have to honor that face in the mirror all the time in order to keep a hold of that sense of nobility and dignity within. Your essence is your one and only unique soul or consciousness as a human being. You are nothing more or less than this. This is who you are. That's it. It might fit neatly into one, two, or more of Carl Jung's archetypes, it might not. In days of old, the shamans and wise people would get one vision of their lives when they were kids or young adults, and that was it. They lived by it to the end of their days. They were guided more by intuition than logic. Your essential self is who you are in your pure form. It never changes. Your consciousness should never change except if you get depressed through loss of self. Even then, the genetic seed and spiritual aesthetic essence that is you is still in there, far away in unfulfilled dream and fantasy form. This is a major cause of most depression and misery in modern day society. people becoming detached from the true natures in their souls by getting bound up in the illusions of the world, thereby getting so far away from the true natures in their souls that they, in effect, have lost it. This is really the cause of most depression. You have lost that spark of youth and that sense of pure identity you felt as a kid long ago before you let the world brainwash you and mess you up. It's so simple, yet most people never realize the cause of the dull, empty, unfulfilled feeling they feel regardless of what they do out in the world or how many people they think love them. It's simple. They're not following their true natures, which are considerably more basic, real, and primal than the stuff they were brainwashed by on how to be good, productive, successful, happy citizens. Your body might be a wreck through aging or bad health, but the dreams you once had as a young person full of hope, promise, and potential are still the essential you. You can't run away from your soul. You can cover it over with all the delusions, illusions, and crap from the outside world and in the process be quite far away from it, but it's still in there somewhere. Day by day, nothing will sustain you spiritually and aesthetically except for living for your own dignity as a human being. You can make all kinds of money, have all kinds of stuff, belong to some religion, be a cult leader, a big, bad dictator, tycoon or pop star, but beyond the basics to sustain yourself materially, everything else from the outside world is false to the real you and fades away when you're by yourself in your head, as you are most of the time, your true thoughts known to none but you. For enlightened people, it comes down to knowing you have to honor your own dignity day by day and releasing the energy to do it. Find your God-given purpose to do something good with your life with whatever power there is in your soul and whatever love you feel for humanity. Nothing comes close to the natural, inherent wisdom you were born with, the blueprint that was imprinted on your soul when you were conceived. This is the best your God gave you of his or her essence. Your only job in life is to honor it, and by doing so, you honor your Creator who made you to be this way. Next to your own pure inner standard, the world is background music. Until you find your own inner voice and live by it, able to resist the game of the world, you will never truly be comfortable in your own skin. There is some interesting and fun stuff out there, but a wise person is always centered on their own identity. System clones reinforce each other and put down people who don't follow the so-called rules of society in an effort to try to get them to play the game of life they're playing. They want people to be one-dimensional and predictable so they can control them and make them feel like they're part of the cool, societal in crowd, as demonstrated on TV shows, in TV commercials, etc. The phony people who color their hair because they're worth it, or who feel great because they driving a brand X car, when anyone that knows anything knows that a car is a functional piece of tin. Just about every man in our society is a macho fool, at least in the privacy of his own mind, brainwashed on one-dimensional action movies to be a tough guy, do whatever it takes to be number one on some pedestal somewhere, and use violence if necessary to solve your problems because that's what cool, macho men do. How much of this is our inherent nature and how much is cultural indoctrination? Problems vs. adventures. Problems are friends. They help you live an interesting life and make you better, that is, if you choose to live them out that way. Everyone's been to hell and back many times, or at least you should have been if you're a human being with the guts to go for what you believe in, come hell or high water. You must expect and accept all adversity and rejection that comes your way. Be thankful for adversity because it reveals the real you, should make you try harder, should bring you wisdom and ultimately make you stronger, although it destroys many people who wither away and self-destruct. Most of you must have heard the poem or prayer where the guy says he wished for a number of things like health, wealth, eloquence, etc., but always got the opposite, which made him work his butt off, and in the end, he says he was thankful for all the adversity because it gave him the wisdom he needed to understand his life and thrive. There are lots of biblical stories where God picks the unlikeliest character to do some big jobs that they didn't seem suited for, like Moses, who was slow of tongue, Paul, who was an angry tax collector, and others who I can't think of now, although I heard them before in a sermon, since I'm not a biblical scholar. When you have a challenge or a problem, make friends with it, embrace it, see the beauty in it, turn it around to use it to make you a strong, better person that might give you some wisdom about your life. Learn to see problems as learning experiences that could lead you on the path to enlightenment in life. Accept them as challenges and even as fun things to deal with. Problems help you to find alternative methods which may lead to qualitatively better things. I wouldn't have written this book unless I felt a need to figure my life out, which was a problem at the time. Problems are also the first step in a new invention. Every invention was created because people had problems with something, so problems can be inspiration, like the guy I read about who lost an arm, wasn't happy with the current state of prosthetics that existed, so he designed his own, which thousands of people now use. There's no problem that can't be solved. The solution may not always be what you expect it to be, but it's a solution, and covering it up is not the way to deal with it. Attack the core of the problem. Dig until you uncover it. Face facts. Admit you have problems. When you solve problems, you not only gain experience in solving other problems as they occur, but you build self-knowledge. Relationships with people. Your life itself is all you own, therefore it's your only true wealth. The minutes you live feeling your spiritual, mystical, biological, primal, aesthetic essence and releasing it. It's not about the things you own or what other people think of you. It's about the energy you release from within yourself day by day in your attempt to reach transcendence as much as you can. The purpose of life is to reach the limits of your potential as a human being as defined by you, and have a hoot doing it. Relationships are easy. Try to love the one you're with. If you can't, at least try to tolerate them. If you can't do this, try to ignore them. If that doesn't work, separate yourself from them. Get out of there. Accept people for who they are. Nobody's perfect. Everybody you're close to will disappoint you at some point in time. It's just the way people operate. Nobody fits like a second skin to your needs and desires. If you love them, you have no choice but to accept their indiscretions within reason, not breathe a word of them or bring it up in their face, and move on. Nobody gets a free pass with me. I've had family members treat me with disrespect. I don't need it. Blood ultimately doesn't mean much if someone is disrespecting you. You walk away regardless of whether it's your spouse, mother, children, etc. This is the only way to stay sane in relationships with people. I know all too well how self-centered and territorial we all are, despite our upfront pretenses, which I accept as part of the game of human relations, which I discuss at length in this book. But if you can't subordinate that to operate at a straight, honest level with me, then I won't waste my time. If you try to put on airs, play own-upmanship ego games, or disrespect me, I'm gone. I don't waste my time with low-level people regardless of who they think they are. With everybody else, I'll be as honest, loyal, friendly, and warm as you are. Since I'm not very materialistic, I have money to burn, so I'm generous with my friends because I can afford to be, because I don't spend my money on too much else besides mind-altering substances. Most relations with people in general are transient events. There is no stable community of souls out there. Everybody walks alone. Remember that as you live your life. You'll make lots of transient connections with all kinds of people, but it will always be you alone, stuck in your head, living your solitary ride while they all go off on theirs. For most people, don't kid yourself about a spiritual connection with your spouse and kids either. Even with your close, personal, intimate relationships, which I contend that not too many people get in their lifetimes for a variety of reasons which I talk about in my love book, you are still universes apart in the thoughts and fantasies, in the privacy of your mind and the way you want to live your life. There are very few soulmates and kindred spirits out there for any of us. If you find a handful over the course of a lifetime, you're way lucky. Most of us are just too different, self-centered, scared, self-conscious, egotistical, vain, inhibited and territorial to make very good friends or help each other much in the inspired, aesthetic, spiritual, loving sense of gloriously sharing our life's experiences with each other. We can easily be friends in the lower order sense and help each other with things like providing company, mild comfort, food, shelter, sex, material goods, money, manual labor, and minor social conversation, but it's not exactly a grand slam in the intimacy we really crave in our human relationships, but that's a matter I discuss more in depth in my love book. Most people do not live out glorious romantic love lives, and most parents, especially men, do not have deep relationships with their kids. They are superficial. Part of this is due to the design of our modern technocratic, pop culture world where kids are happier plugged into gadgets than being with their parents, but part of it is also our failure as human beings to be loving and show love to people, even to those who we are closest to. We are either too inhibited or too into our own pursuits like work, golf, TV, food, vanity, status, booze, etc. The conformity factor. People in general, from establishment employees to your close intimates, mostly want you to do things that please them and make them feel comfortable, not what you really want to do freely. People will give you a dirty look, a scowl, or a demeaning comment about how odd you are to try to get you to conform to some imaginary standard of normality that they pretend they have that makes them superior to you, whom they're implying is deficient somehow. So the conclusion is that these people don't love you unconditionally for you. In the interests of sanity, you can play along with them and give them lip service for collective peace in the moment, but let them know by your free actions that they can't manipulate you into feeling deficient or fitting into their paradigm one way or another. The most common ploy for people who want to keep you down is to try to twist your inherent right to live your life freely into something selfish and try to make you feel guilty about it. You will often get this abuse from the ones closest to you, like your family, but if they can't accept you for the way you are, that's their problem, not yours, as I've had to tell a few people who thought they had some control over me. Don't confuse control with love. They're two different things. True love is someone letting you be who you really are. Control is trying to keep you down, belittling you, embarrassing you, trying to make you act a certain way out of guilt, and you shouldn't take it if you're an enlightened being. On the surface, the 1999 movie Pleasantville looks like another stupid sentimental movie about the alleged good, old days in the 1950s, but the movie is quite the masterpiece because they show that the concept of Pleasantville is based on massive conformity to a one-dimensional standard of normality and success, which means prejudice in keeping the undesirables out while trying to control the mainstream. Gary Ross, the writer, producer, and director, deserves an accolade for that one. The good, old days weren't really all that good if you examine them more closely under a microscope. Just ask any black guy, gay guy, Asian guy, beatnik, or chick trying for a serious career. Another one that looks like a corny Disney-esque movie about the free, wise teacher who gets punished for trying to be a good teacher is Dead Poets Society from 1989. It's not bad for mild inspiration. Robin Williams, the actor, may have started out as funny Guy Mork on a sitcom, but seems to have gravitated towards these inspired, nonconformist roles like the alternative thinking doctor with a cheery attitude Patch Adams and the robot looking for emancipation in a movie whose name escapes me. It reminds of another one I saw from the 1970s or around then about actor Jon Voight, I think, taking a job as a teacher of black kids somewhere in the South, who is fired for being too inspirational as opposed to conventional. The free mindset. Have the courage to explore what your soul craves. Most people will never know they have this inner standard locked away inside of them, away from the world, therefore they will not live by it, and as a result, will not live great inspired hedonistic sensual romantic glorious lives. This happens, in my opinion, for two major reasons in our Western, capitalist societies. 1. Weakness, not enough guts and curiosity to explore one's life above all else. 2. Loneliness, the fear of being alone, unconnected with anyone else both spiritually, emotionally and socially for appearance's sake. There is a third reason in the poor, oppressed nations and among the poor in our society, namely that they spend most of their time and efforts with basic survival and generally are not in a position to have the luxury to explore their lives and try to live a great one for themselves. As far as human weakness goes, you are born with a certain genetic seed and divine blueprint for your life. The greatest life for any individual who thinks they are free and wise is to realize this, manifest it and live it out with gusto and intensity. The lamest life is to not live by it, instead to follow the protocols and standards of the world system around you and don't bother exploring yourself as an individual. You merely go along with cultural forces pushing you as to what's good and right for you to be a good conformist, pacified, comfortable citizen clone. It's all there on the tube, at work, in school, in church, in government propaganda, in magazines and newspapers, on the internet and in your friends and among the people in your community who are all somewhat brainwashed and passing it on to you just as you pass your brainwash from the system onto them. It's a big, unending cycle of indoctrination that can take you over if you're weak enough to go along with it, often without realizing it because marketing is so clever these days, as I realized when I put together my business book. Most people are massively brainwashed even though they think they're living free lives. They simply allow themselves to be seduced by the pop culture, commercial media around them and think it's cool stuff because they are led to believe that all cool people are plugged into the system too, so they wanna be cool, but they don't realize they're sacrificing the most important thing any individual owns, the expression of their own unique right of life, living purely by the inner blueprint they were born with. You just have to go along with the program and you'll live a relatively secure, safe, successful, dull, average, uninspired life, deluding yourself into thinking you must be doing all right because by the system's definition, you are, and, of course, everybody around you who is moderately successful is doing the same, so you all reinforce each other. But looking at it from the inside, as I did one time when I was a system clone, it felt like I was missing something, playing out a charade, and now, as an outsider looking in, nothing has changed. It's still generic, dull, and lame to me. Most people will not bother exploring their own lives much. They will go along with the system program, never questioning it much. They will think they are free because they choose the courses they take in school, a career option from among the ones the system offers, choose a mate, the kind of car they drive and the house they live in. What if you think school is a big brainwashing factory, that none of the career options out there interest you, that a car is just a functional piece of tin with no status attachments to it, that merchandise with N*K logos on it is just overpriced, overhyped crap as opposed to being cool trendy stuff, that you don't want to marry anyone or maybe want to marry 3 people all at the same time. Maybe you don't want to live on a 7-day cycle but instead follow your inner inspired and hedonistic whims when they hit, like an ongoing adventure of time. Maybe you think recreational substances are great for pleasure and enlightenment despite the massive propaganda machine out there demonizing them. Did you ever hear the words to the old song from the 1960s, "Everybody's talking at me"? I don't hear a word they're saying, only the echoes of my mind. When you get wise, assuming you will at some point in time, you'll realize all that stuff out in the world can help or hurt you if you let it, but in the end, it's still all minor next to the pure sanctity that is you as an individual living your own life, analyzing yourself away from the indoctrination of the world. What it comes down to is, do you have the guts to live a totally free life following your own code, or will you become a functional worker clone within the system living on its schedule and standards? Do you have the guts and the strength to explore your own life as the ongoing adventure it is every day, as opposed to following the formula of generic success for life in a capitalist world? Materialism and pop culture have got their hooks into most people who buy into these trivial pursuits thinking they're cool stuff, when the truth is that in the spectrum of human experience, they're low-level business ventures next to what's inspired, original, intense, euphoric, real and transcendent in life. Yet most people don't seem to realize they have been sold on this lifestyle by the big corporations who want to keep them low-level consumers constantly spending their money relying on this stuff for a sense of mundane comfort through the illusion that all this new glitter constantly flashed at them in the commercial media all the time will do something to make them seem trendy, cool and feel great. But it's all a lie, because it's all a bunch of marketing crap that is nothing next to trusting yourself by following your soul. Another thing the system brainwashes you with is this idea that there is some kind of unified community out there. There isn't. We're all a bunch of loners walking around, each living in a fantasy world of our own creation, and your job as a good citizen clone is to try to achieve recognition and status in it, as if that's gonna do something to help you live a glorious, transcendent life. Sure, We all unite here and there for a cause or to socialize, but anybody that tries to pretend that there are more than 3 people anywhere who get along for more than a few hours in a perfect unified community without disagreement and dissent is a fool and a liar for believing that human beings can be together and live together for long periods of time without ego, jealousy, vanity, arrogance, pettiness, and selfishness getting in the way. People can't get along together in a close, intimate way for a long period of time because of the human personality in general. Everybody has their own ego and their own self-centered way of doing things and thinking about them. Among people of the same gender, there's usually a silent competition. Among opposite-sex people, there's the battle of the sexes, and among lovers and soulmates, there's always the line between you as an individual and the dynamics of the relationship. This is why I give anyone I happen to be involved with, either as a friend, business associate, or lover, lots of space to live their own lives, because I know how inherently self-centered and territorial we all are, even though almost no one will admit to it. But I know all about human nature by now because I studied myself and realized that what I think and feel is pretty typical, although almost no one admits to their self-centered, territorial ways out loud. Familiarity breeds contempt. The greatest way to keep marriages strong is to stay out of each other's way for at least 70% of every day. We're all loners, each of us carrying our own crosses, oftentimes sharing it with no one but ourselves. We can socialize, talk, kiss, hug, love, make love, help each other and have fun together all we want, but it will never erase the fact that we are all alone, our lives known to none but ourselves. Get this one gold-plated truth through your head. The quicker we get over this capitalist lie pretending we're all a bunch of happy, soppy consumers hanging out at the mall, watching pop culture entertainment, thinking home decor is the cutting edge of life, feeling like a big, united group of brainwashed clones who love each other because we're all good capitalists who watch TV commercials that tell us we're worth it and all eat the same junk food they advertise, the more connected we'll be to our true essences as individuals. If you're tuned into what's going on, you will realize that most people are spending their time thinking about the most important thing to them, which is themselves, and they're not thinking about you much. So why should you waste time trying to impress them with how cool, fascinating, and beautiful you are when they don't really care? And if you're one of those lost souls playing this game because you think it's the way successful people are, or you think that it will elevate your inner thoughts about yourself, then you're wasting your life on this lie from the system, thinking that recognition from others is a high ideal and will influence the way you feel about yourself and the way you live day by day, because it doesn't. It's all about honoring your own inner standard all the time. The outside world can't give you honor within yourself. You have to earn your own sense of self-respect all the time. If I don't release a good amount of natural inspired energy for 1 or 2 days, I feel myself starting to lose my standard. I can't be swayed by other people either way, whether they criticize me and call me a bum or praise me with trophies and compliments about how great, talented, unique, fascinating, beautiful, extraordinary and advanced I am. I've been put down and flattered, and for enlightened people, it means nothing either way, yet some people live for this recognition by others. Who cares what somebody else says to you or about you either way, good or bad? What do they really know about the real you and the way you live your life minute by minute, day by day? What does anybody know about what's going on inside anybody else's head? What does it matter anyway, since it's your ride, not theirs to stick their noses into? Why I should give a damn about what someone else thinks of me? I'm too busy trying to live a great life than bothering with a bunch of one-dimensional gossips trying to pretend they got some control over me. Mark Twain said what other people thought of him was none of his business. It never ceases to amaze me how so many people let the opinions of others about them get to them and screw them up. Some people are that empty as individuals that they look to others outside of themselves to fill them up somehow, to give them some sense of a positive feeling about themselves. It gives them their sense of worth or self-esteem, as the psychobablists call it, but enlightened people know this is all transient and doesn't sustain an individual where it counts. The game is to live by the standard in your soul, and whatever the outside world around you says about you ultimately doesn't affect you either way. It's just minor entertainment or a minor distraction. You have your sanctity within yourself regardless of what's going on out there. You can be easygoing, sociable, and loving in your relations with people, and it can feel good and comfortable, but ultimately, their opinion of you doesn't change your own battle for your own self-respect. If somebody says something nice to you or about you, you can use that to inspire you for about 10 minutes, but anything beyond that is pure delusion. With a soulmate, if you're lucky enough to meet one over the course of your lifetime, it's an inner knowing. You're connected by virtue of having the same souls. All other human connections are transient. They fade in and out, go around like a circle, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. Try to imitate a cat. He's always following his true nature. My cat is always purring. It doesn't matter what's going on out there, the biggest storms, all that crap on the news, the local gossip. He's always got the happy purr going on inside, unfazed by the world out there. It's nice for both for us when I snuggle up to him and love him. We're kindred spirits, but he's still that cool and stable that he's happy within himself regardless of my presence or absence. The paternalistic paradigm. The paternalistic paradigm most of us have been brainwashed by is the erroneous belief that there are certain people out there who take on the persona of father figures within the system, and we the people accept them as our leaders, wise people, and gurus because it gives us a warm, cozy feeling that there is something greater than us out there that cares and is looking out for our best interests. They act like they know what's best for us better than we know ourselves, so we listen to what they say because it's for our own good and will lead to our happiness and success as defined by them. Most of our father figures are older white guys. You rarely see a black guy or a woman take on this role as one of our wise leaders within mainstream society. They are a bunch of pompous elitist asses, but they act like they care about people and are trying to help them for their own good, when what they're really doing is trying to pump up their own massive, misguided superiority complex egos. God is the ultimate father figure. He is the device through which we are brainwashed starting at a very young age to be subservient to others who are our supposed elders, leaders, authority figures, managers, gurus, politicians, men in uniform or superiors. This paradigm that there are authoritative father figures out there who act as our leaders, experts, and role models gets ingrained into us at a young age. Then we follow them without question because we've been brainwashed to be good, little clones always looking to a father figure to lead the way. Most people have allowed themselves to be brainwashed by this without even realizing it. They simply accept the state of affairs without questioning it because they were brought up this way and virtually everybody around them thinks this way too. They think they're free, but they're free to make minor decisions within this box of life. If you're free to choose between two political parties that are both elitist and don't represent you, your power to vote really means nothing. Very few of us ever venture outside the box to experience true freedom. There is always a father figure in there somewhere telling us what to do. Even the TV anchors are reassuring father figures, gently guiding us on what to think about with their authoritative, benevolent, all-knowing demeanors. Their body language gives away what they think of a particular story. They might snicker, grimace, or talk in a contemptuous tone to guide us into the way we should think about the issues of the day. We're all brainwashed to be sheep starting at a young age by having paternalistic archetype people tell us what to do at church, in school, in scouts, on TV, at work, etc. Most of us stay as trained cattle throughout our lives, giving others some kind of authority over us, assuming they know more about life and what's good for us than we know ourselves, like the politicians, priests, and the talking heads on TV, so we listen and follow. But if you don't buy into this and listen to yourself, you're either enlightened and free or on the way. Most people live one-dimensional, dull lives stuck somewhere between capitalist values, which is the search and craving for money and material things to bring them happiness, and plugging into pop culture entertainment to try to get some kind of good, warm, happy feeling inside, but it never works because there's only real way to feel good. You must look at yourself as the pure human being you were born with the potential to be, decide you'll insulate yourself from all the illusions and pollution of the world to live for what you feel within, and pursue a standard that makes you constantly live to release all that inspired, aesthetic, sensual and loving energy you feel inside. Everybody else lives like all those pathetic characters you see on the talk shows all the time with their piddly little problems and the mundane pits they've dug their lives into. They're not wise or strong enough to know that if you just get on with it, go out and do something intense that makes you feel like you're going for a good to great ride with your life right now, all that other crap that you call your problems, most of which are phony psychobabble anxiety, fades away into nothingness where it belongs. This is the difference between truly happy people and everybody else. They're doing something with the original spirit they feel within themselves. Everybody else is living by some paradigm they got from out in the world about how they should live, what they should do to be successful, how they should dress, talk and act in order to be a so-called cool person, etc. Almost nobody shoots for a dose of transcendence acquired through an intense release of natural energy almost every day. I laugh contemptuously at all the world's ideologies trying to tell me how to live my best life, as they say. I can't be indoctrinated by anything. This is enlightenment and freedom. Unless you live like this, you're not enlightened or free regardless of what delusions you might have about being so. If you want to get a feel for the pulse of what people are thinking and how they're living, watch the typical TV talk show which has a one-dimensional person acting as either the wise father figure of the mother hen archetype supposedly dispensing sage advice to the lost, helpless and forlorn of our society, but it's all conventional psychobabble because not one lives to capture the inspiration, beauty, and transcendence life should be lived for all the time. They don't have a spring in their step with a gleam in their eye that reflects someone in harmony with themselves with a look of vitality and joy on their faces. It's all about sniveling little losers with their pathetic problems who don't have the sense to realize that they create their own lives. They live in their little self-created, self-centered delusions, blame it on something else rather than just following their true natures and trying to live for some joy, gusto, inspiration, aesthetics and the quest for constant feelings of euphoric sensations. This is why we live in a lost society. People buy into all this morose, phony, negative system knowledge that alienates them from who they really are, and it's constantly blasted at us through the media all the time. Some psychobabblist says we're all victims of our past baggage and some other one says we're all victims of fear. All the while, they're pounding us with what they call the news, which is overwhelmingly negative. Then they pound us with unrealistic visions of a frivolous, meaningless life somewhere in some fantasy place called Hollywood, which doesn't exist in the real world. The town of Hollywood in Los Angeles with the zip code 90,028 is just a dirty concrete jungle full of ordinary, working people living average lives. Is it any wonder why we live in a schizophrenic society of lost souls looking out there at all this stuff to fill them up rather than focusing on who they really are as original individuals? Where are the people left who don't buy into all this stuff and try to live joyful, inspired lives in the moment for themselves by what they feel in their souls? No wonder we have such few enlightened noble hedonists around, people with a healthy dose of honoring who they are by pursuing positive, inspired soulful pursuits mixed in with a craving for the sensations of a beautiful, enjoyable carnal aesthetic sensual lifestyle. Life for truly happy people is to follow your true bohemian nature with some kind of conviction, joy, and intensity. The sheeple watch these shows and read these psychobabble books that are touted as the cutting-edge wisdom of the day, then 2 days later, forget about everything in them because not one tells the truth, that an enlightened life is about tapping into your natural store of inspiration, aesthetics, sensuality and love. The less you follow your true nature and follow something from out in the world, the more miserable and empty you will feel. At some point in time, this sense of inner disharmony catches up to everyone who's being honest with themselves, although some people live in denial and try to push their true feelings away, which end up with their subconscious minds haunting them until they bring it to the surface, acknowledge it and try to fix it. Some people are haunted by this inner sense that something is not quite right in their lives and never figure out why. This is why. The true test of happiness and success is how you feel most of the time. Do you strive to live an inspired sensual aesthetic loving lifestyle to get some highs out of the deal and feel like you're taking your life for a pretty good ride so far today, or are you just another generic person, always on that mundane flat line of feeling average complacent comfort, no pain but no great highs either? All that stuff the system dangles in front of you as being cool, successful and off the hook fun cannot compete with you figuring out what makes you feel good and keeps you inspired day by day. This is my test of character for people I come across. How much do they look like they're taking their lives for a great ride following their own standards, free enough to get over all the phony crap the world tries to brainwash them with? All the pop culture entertainment, psychobabble, mainstream news and all the formal academic system social sciences knowledge in the world cannot compete with the wisdom in any one free, enlightened individual trying to live his or her life for the pure, naked essence that it is. The problem with the world today is that a lot of us let this mainstream ideology stuff pollute our minds and souls to the point where it detracts from who we really are, the way we were born. Everything except for scientific law was created by people, so nobody or no institution can go qualitatively higher than any one enlightened individual in understanding the human condition, because this is the absolute, highest objective standard that humanity can ever get to. All enlightened individuals are the same. They live by their own standards to maximize the positive experience of their lives. They can't be brainwashed by anything. This is as high as you can go. The spirit of life. Far better to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the great twilight that knows not victory, nor defeat. Theodore Roosevelt, 1899. We, the enlightened free spirits, live for the spirit of life for its own sake. It's like Van Gogh said, live brilliantly like the brightness of the noonday sun. I'm being me the way I was born to be. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less, just me unpolluted by the world around me. Find the one or two things that you really love to do that keep you intensely naturally inspired about your life every single day. What is your true essence as a human being? Figure out a way to earn a living from this. Pursue whatever you want for your own pleasure without letting the world brainwash you as to what constitutes pleasure. As long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others, it's all good. Then to round it all out, if you want to fill up what's left of your hole of existential loneliness, which I presume you've gotten mostly rid of by accepting yourself as is and living for your soul, you should have enough of an identity to attract worthy people and lovers who will like and love you for you purely, not for the image you put forth to the world made up of your job description, your car, your clothes, your title, your zip code, etc. You have to figure out how to earn a living from doing something that inspires you, which could be the hard part. Although some regular jobs can be inspiring at times, the truly hardcore, die-hard, enlightened free spirits look for ways to earn a living that come out of what they naturally like to do. Anybody can be cool, fresh, arrogant, strong, cocky, confident, powerful and good-looking when they're young, but watch them at 40, then at 45 and 50. Most people have lost whatever inspired vitality and beauty the gods of the grace of youth have given them by the time they're 40. Money can't buy these things, but inspired living can. The wise, enlightened ones keep going on with a spring in their step and not much of a rear-view mirror to look back at, because they're smart enough to know that they have to keep creating their lives every single day. Life is a clean slate every morning when you wake up. This is one great equalizer. All those people out there who are wealthy materially or are the supposed big stars of society wake up in the same generic state of mind as everyone else. Ain't nobody on the planet special in this way, despite what airs they might put on about how advanced, important or wealthy they are. I go off right away virtually every day and release a bunch of intense, inspired energy. After releasing all this energy, I enter a higher state of consciousness through a combination of physiological endorphin release and a spiritual aesthetic elevation of the sensual experience of life. This is the freedom that free spirits look to capture, this sense of ease, euphoria, and transcendence you get after you've had a good hard run of human experience for a while. It's qualitatively significantly higher than that average mundane state of consciousness most people live in. Chapter 6. Inspiration 6. Thoroughbred racehorse trying to reach his limits. Your day-to-day sense of well-being depends on how inspired you are, which depends on how much of your natural-born energy you're currently using up, which is the main thesis of this book. To me, it's simple mathematics. If I burn off a lot of natural energy and ride my life as though it's an intense, interesting experience and I'm living it as a thoroughbred racehorse trying to reach my limits to the best of my ability, I feel good and I can ride this feeling for months on end. If, for one reason or another, usually just plain old weakness, I don't follow my inner standard and consequently don't release my natural energy on any given day, it sits inside of me unused and makes me feel mundane to miserable as opposed to inspired and transcendent when I'm releasing my natural store of energy. This is what leads to a neutral generic lifestyle that could spiral down into depression if left unchecked. When you don't release your natural, inherent energy, you lose respect for yourself. This is the root cause of most depression. Some people get depressed due to a specific negative event. Most people get depressed because they're not following their true nature, therefore not releasing their natural potential energy from their soul. This unused energy sits inside of them and over time leads to a sense of loss of self, which is depression, which is simply uninspiration, not living by the spirit within yourself, living by something else from the system, or just being a lazy, tired, useless sack of couch potato crap. It's simple: release your natural energy, you feel good. Don't release it and it sits inside of you unused, bottled up in there, causing feelings of disharmony, self-betrayal, and misery. You're only as good as you are right now today. Anything you've ever done in the past is gone and the future is an unpainted canvas, so it's all about now, living in the moment. If you don't keep actively creating your life all the time, you end up on the scrap heap of humanity just like all the other washed up souls out there, regardless of what you may have done in the past, how revered you may think you are out in the world based on some reputation you think you have, how much money you have, or how many trophies you have on your mantle. I know one guy who was in a famous rock band 30 years ago. Every time I talk to him, he always works it into the conversation at least once. I don't have the heart to tell him to get over it, that was then, this is now. Some people live on past glory. This is a stupid way to go. Take a good look at anyone right square in the eyes. You can tell very easily who has the joy of someone who gets it and are releasing their natural energy every day versus everybody else who live generic, mundane, uninspired lives but go around acting like they're happy and fulfilled. The permanent imprint on your face and the state of your body don't lie. Nobody fools me. I can tell who the truly joyful people are right away, and it's got nothing to do with what anyone tells me about how great their lives are. Everybody's life is written on their face and body. I provide the basic blueprint, namely to know your soul, know what it takes to release the natural potential energy that lives inside of you day after day to stay inspired and feeling good. But everybody's journey to enlightenment is different because we all have different souls, different things we were born with the potential to be. This potential is your blueprint. It was there when you were born, given to you by your God. Everybody has this pure essence at birth. The hard part is to actually manifest it without letting yourself get psycho-bamboozled by the world's illusions along the way. Do what you really want to do with your life. Strive for intense experiences which are your lifeblood, to release a bunch of intense, inspired, aesthetic energy because it makes you feel like you're taking your life for a pretty good ride today, right now. You as an individual are responsible for your happiness. Always be wary of the society you live in affecting the pure essence that is you. If you live in a repressive society, in order to survive you have to follow the rules. If you live in a relatively free society, you will have the opportunity to live out the person that you could be, provided you go about it intelligently and don't give in to the brainwashing forces you're surrounded by. You either manifest the seed fully, in which case you're an enlightened free spirit, or you let your true essence rot away while you either follow the illusions of the world or live a superficial, frivolous life, not doing much of anything beyond absorbing pop culture entertainment and mainstream societal values. Your soul is your base and inspiration. You have to find it and live true to it day by day. That's life stripped down to the core. Although I would like there to be a God, Nobody knows for sure until we die, so I've resolved to forget about religion, live true to myself as any God that created me would want me to live, to honor the essence that he created me to be, so I don't waste my time bowing down to anything. I live in the here and now. If God is up there, he sees me as one of his master pupils, being myself purely, questioning everything, even his existence, trying to be the best specimen of humanity I can be based on the way he made me. All we know for sure is right here, right now, physical beings on planet Earth, so I'll take that as my only given, stay open to the possibility of a divine dimension somewhere, and dedicate at least part of my life to trying to find this divinity through my explorations of the subconscious mind and beyond, in the use of mind-altering substances as well as other techniques I dabble in. True identity is the precursor for true love. Every conventional, New Age and religious psychobabbling guru is preaching about love and relationships as the key to a happy, fulfilled, great life, but they seem to miss out on two things: your first relationship, which is you by yourself, and how life is actually lived day by day. Our days are long. We spend most of them alone, stuck in our heads, our thoughts known to none but us. Nobody wants to be smothered, to be with their loved ones all the time regardless of how much they love them. You fill up most of the hours every day by yourself, either being inspired and happy about your life or being generic, mundane, routine, and possibly sad, miserable and depressed if you feel on some level that you're not fulfilling your true destiny or potential in life. Many people feel sad but don't know why. The reason is because you're not honoring the person you feel in your soul that you should have, could have been. This often happens on a subconscious level. Your soul is talking to you, but you're not listening because you've been so brainwashed by the world. The thing that I've discovered about my life is that I cannot be a true, full lover of someone else until and unless I know my own identity and honor it all the time by purging my natural energy to make me feel good, lighthearted, easygoing, and free. Then I have the energy to spare and the desire to complete my life by showering my loving energy onto others. If you don't have this inner wisdom of your own true identity and consciously try to honor yourself every day, you are not a full human being. You are out of harmony with your true nature, and because you feel this emptiness within, you're preoccupied looking for ways to alleviate, which takes away from your ability to be a great lover. Lots of people are brainwashed to think that marriage and family are the most important things in life and the keys to happiness and fulfillment, so they seek to find someone to get married and have a few children, all while they don't have a strong grasp of who they are as individuals. These marriages and families might work out, they might not. Regardless, these people put all their energies into their spouse and their children, which is not healthy because these people are not you. They have their own agendas, their own solitary souls they must contend with. They will spend most of every day by themselves away from you. Your children will leave someday, and your spouse might get tired of you and divorce you, or if not, he will quietly loathe you or just see you as a roommate, not someone he's constantly passionately in love with. Where does that leave you? It should leave you in the same place you are always in, knowing your true identity, honoring that mug in the mirror by releasing inspired energy to that end every day regardless of what the other circumstances of your life are. I've been alone and I've been in love. Through it all, my essence as a human being never changed. Every day I went off to honor my artistic bohemian self by going through my routine of physical and intellectual creative activities. After I do them, I feel good to great, and I have the desire and the ease of mind to be a loving person. If I don't do these things to reach my personal standard of how my life should be lived, I'm out of harmony with myself. This unused energy is sitting inside of me, making me feel bad because I didn't respect what my essence is as a human being. Most people don't know they have an inherent personal standard of life that they were born with, so they don't make a conscious attempt to constantly release this energy. As a result, they are out of harmony with themselves. They don't live close to the great feeling lives they could be living. They may look for a relationship to fill this void, but you can't fill it with anything other than being true to your pure essence as a human being. This is the big lie or the fallacy of contemporary, modern society brainwashed by psychobabble. They try to tell you to love your spouse and love your kids as your path to happiness and nirvana, but they don't tell you that you can't be a fully loving person unless you've got control of your own life to feel good within yourself, such that you've got the energy to spare to pass some love on because you feel so good and inspired by honoring your soul. If you're a lost soul or a dependent flake who tries to get your sense of identity through your spouse and your kids, you're always gonna fail at some point in time, because life is lived alone in your head, and even if you displace this reality by being concerned with your spouse and kids all the time, sooner or later, you will find yourself alone by yourself and you will have to confront who you are or continue to live in denial. Millions of people marry because of cultural brainwash, because they think that, according to society's formula, this is the path to freedom and happiness, but they don't know their own identities yet, so as a result, they don't honor themselves day by day. They walk around with this gnawing, empty feeling that they can't put a finger on. They don't know what it is. They're married and working a steady job, society's prescription for happiness, yet they don't feel a sense of full, true joy or a sense of ease about their lives, like they're doing what they were born to do. This is why I went off on my free spirit's journey, to discover my true identity. That's what I felt intuitively within me, away from the brainwash of the world. Now that I've found it, I do exactly what I want and exactly what I feel I should be doing with my life every day to honor the divine force that created me. Because of this, I feel good. I have energy to spare. I'm happy. I want to shower my love onto my few intimates, but I'm wise enough to know that I have to keep honoring who I am every day in order to have the state of mind where I feel so good about my life that it's no sweat for me to be a great lover without feeling that I'm cheating myself out of my life or feeling some inner disharmony within. Using up natural energy. Some people don't use up any energy in the course of the day. These are the people with extreme loss of self and self-hate, the couch potatoes, the depressed, sick and the miserable of our society. Of the people that are expending energy every day, there are two major types of energy you can release. 1. Using up natural inspired energy from the depths of your soul will always make you feel good and be good for you. This is the only type of energy people like me care about expending. 2. Using up energy to follow one or more of the illusions of the world, like status, fame, material excess, ego, etc., including earning a living. If it's an activity you have no strong personal inherent love for, it does nothing for how you feel in the inspired spiritual aesthetic sense, and could even be bad for you if you let it get to the point of stress. The most basic thing is that most people do jobs they feel no strong love for. It doesn't come from the depths of their souls, but they don't really care because they are earning a living and enjoying a few creature comforts along the way. This is what separates the enlightened free spirit from the mass of humanity out there. The enlightened free spirit gives so much of a damn about his or her life that he or she can't waste it doing some job or anything else that doesn't mightily inspire them and otherwise make them feel good regardless of the pay, while most people have no strong needs to live inspired, original lives, trying for a feeling of transcendence every single day as their purpose in life. As long as they make enough money to live comfortable, mundane lives, they are satisfied. Most people are essentially identityless. They live generic lives according to the system protocols wherever they happen to live. They do as the Romans do, the other conformists around them, and don't particularly care about what job they do or what they do for recreation as long as it yields them enough of a paycheck to live a relatively comfortable life. Inspiration is a sacred word to people like me because it's the key to life. The world derives from two words, in plus spirited, meaning someone who is into the spirit of his or her life. This describes a person who is happy because he or she is consciously constantly releasing the natural potential energy in their souls they were born with. When you're tapped into it or riding it, it feels like the spirit of life is coursing through your veins, like whatever power there is in your essence/soul is pulsating through your body and you're intuitively following it. This invisible force within that comes from whatever is divine in the universe that propels you to go for whatever it is you deem important in life. To me, it's a full intense expression of my being to make me feel high on life, a transcendent kind of feeling where I'm riding it, kinda like surfing my ride of the human experience for the day or the afternoon. Then when I come down, I still feel pretty good because I'm close to my personal standard of how my life should be lived and who I am by virtue of doing these activities, and I can replicate it tomorrow by once again releasing all this untapped energy within me to a high, intense, inspired level. In general, the constituents of this raw, inner, primal aesthetic spiritual energy is firstly the recognition that you have a personal standard of how your life should be lived locked up inside of you somewhere. I generally think of your own personal standard as matching one or more of the archetypes Carl Jung, the mystic psychologist, talked about. If you're curious about your life in any way at all, you generally should know very early what your archetype or few archetypes are. Who do you see in those momentary fantasy visions you get of yourself in your finest form, being who you feel you were created to be, who you coulda, shoulda been? I'm not talking about dull things here. I'm talking about how would you like to be if you were free, strong, and inspired. Lawyer, business executive, or dentist are not exactly things people dream about being. They are safe, functional, practical careers, but they're not what's in the raw, untamed souls of people. Enlightened free spirits eventually find the standard that lives in their souls, then live by it every day for the rest of their lives. I would describe it as doing tough, worthy, challenging activities that give you life orgasms when you release this internal, intuitive natural energy intensely.